Yes.
Dennis says yes.
When the item comes up, just so it's on the same as they saw.
You think about a second, like that, stick over those words.
Thank God we just study that. Keeps us in line.
And you know what? Yeah, Newfoundland or used to bring skids. Getting around, but.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Council. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Municipality of the County of Colchester, April 27, 2026. And I'm going to ask our CAO for roll call, please.
Thank you very much. So we'll start with Chair Mayor Blair,
Present.
Councilor Weatherby,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sanderson,
Present.
Councilor Richardson,
Present.
Councilor Cooper,
Present.
Councilor Johnson,
Present.
Councilor Leggett has sent his regrets, Councilor Martel,
Present.
Councilor Patton,
Present.
Councilor Benoit,
Present.
Councilor Fletcher,
Present.
Councilor Kennedy.
Present.
Madam Quorum.
Thank you. In peace and friendship and in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I acknowledge that we live in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. The first item on our agenda this evening is a public hearing, amendments to the land use bylaw and the Lands of Family Acres Campground. I call this public hearing to order, respecting an application to amend the Colchester land use bylaw to rezone property located at 2204 Highway 4, Folly Mountain, PID 201311793, from rural general to agriculture potential zone, commercial recreation zone. The request for rezoning is to permit the property to be used as a commercial campground. In accordance with the Colchester Land Use Bylaw 2025 site plan, approval will be required for the development of the campground. This process is separate from the rezoning application and will require successful approval of the rezoning before the site plan can proceed. There is a recommendation by staff to approve this land use bylaw amendment. The related staff report has been circulated to council members and has been made available to the public. Mr. Clerk, have the guidelines of the Municipal Government Act regarding advertising of the first and second readings and public hearing been followed?
Yes, Madam Chair, they have.
Thank you. Councilors, you are reminded that only those councilors present throughout the public hearing can vote on approval of the land use bylaw amendment when it is eventually considered by council. That this public hearing is council's opportunity to hear the land use bylaw amendment and any concerns of Colchester County residents. Individual councilors will have an opportunity to debate the merits of the land use bylaw amendment when the motion is presented to council. And that staff are present at this hearing to answer any technical questions that may arise because of the public's input. Do we have someone who will speak for the applicant and give an overview of the proposal? Would you come forward, please, and give your names?
Hi, I'm Elaine DeJohnette. We are the owner of Family Acres with my husband, Reginal.
And I'm going to ask you to have a seat and turn the microphone on. It's the lower right button. There we go.
Feel important.
And please proceed.
Okay, so our goal here is to develop a welcoming, family-oriented campground that would be offering year-round accommodation. With the ski Wentworth being only 10 minutes away, it's really a good opportunity for us to have tourism in the winter and the summer as well. In the recent year, the demand for seasonal camping and short-term rental has steadily been rising as more individual and family are looking for an easier and more affordable way to enjoy a home away from home. People are looking for more than just a place to stay. They're also looking for a sense of community and being part of a group and belonging to a community. And we intend to build that through thoughtfully planned amenities such as green place, walking trail, playground, communal area, and lots of activities for kids and adults. In addition, we're planning to have the campground fully equipped with a backup generator to remain operational during major power outage, to be open in time of emergency. We would be willing and prepared to offer our operation as a warming center for the resident nearby in the community. And also during the summer, when we're fully operational, the community would be welcome to also enjoy our playground and amenities and everything that's available in the area.
Okay, thank you. And counselors, does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you. I'm sorry, Al, I didn't see your
Mayor, to
microphone.
you.
Yep.
Are the campers there year round?
They will stay well, it depends on who wants to leave them there year round or who wants to pull them out. But most seasonal would remain there year round, yes.
So how many months would it be?
Our goal is to open with 100, and probably the maximum was 150, 170, depending on the land use. We don't want to overcrowd too much as well, because you lose the community feeling when it gets too big, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions, counselors? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would now ask staff to introduce the proposed land use bylaw amendment. Jill, please. Our planner, Jill McGillicuddy.
Good evening, council. I'm going to try hard not to duplicate anything that's already been said. So the purpose of this evening's meeting is to consider the proposed amendments to the Municipality of Colchester Land Use Bylaw 2025 to consider a rezoning. So just to give you a bit of an overview, the owner of the property is Family Acres Campground Incorporated. The location is 2204 Highway 4, Foley Mountain, and the PIN number is 2013-1793. As previously indicated, the applicants are Brad Roy and Elaine Desjardins, representing Family Acres Campground. So the purpose of the rezoning or the application is to amend the Colchester Land Use Bylaw to rezone the subject property. So they're looking to rezone from RG and AP to P2, which would permit a commercial campground. It is important for council to note that that is the intent of the applicants. However, if it is rezoned, anything that's permitted within a P2 zone would be permitted on the property. So historically, prior to the 2025 land use bylaw and MPS, the property was unzoned. And with the ensuing municipal planning strategy of 2025, the property became designated rural. And the ensuing land use bylaw zoned the subject property RG rural general and AP agricultural potential. So the property is currently vacant. Oh, sorry. There is a mix of uses in the immediate area, including residential. There's some forestry uses. There's some commercial recreation in the vicinity. There's parks and open spaces, and both vacant and utilized agricultural lands. There is frontage located along Highway 4, and there is access out to Highway number 4. So if the rezoning is successful, as mentioned, the proposed use is a commercial campground. It is important to note if the developer does do this, site plan approval would be required, so there'd be an additional step that would be required. Oh, my apologies. Just to go over the my apologies. So there is green area located along here. There's amenity, there is proposed amenity spaces. There's some pickleball, some horseshoe. I do have larger scale plans if you'd like me to bring them out so you can take a look at them. There are a number of sites. They have as part of the PAC meeting, the developers did look at, they had some pull throughs, which they've taken out to allow for additional amenity space. There is a pool. And over here is an office, and there is some parking located, along, the entrance when you first come in. If council desires, there are larger 36 by 24 drawings if you'd like to see them. My apologies, the PDF isn't working here this evening as it was last time to bring it up. The property, as mentioned, is designated rural. There are several policies that are relevant, and they include policies 4-6, 4-23, 4-107, 6-16, 6-17, and 6-25 through 628. Policy 4-107 is the policy that allows council to consider a rezoning of the policy. Policy 616, 617, and 625 through 628 provide council with general criteria for considering consideration when evaluating a land use bylaw amendment. The property is not located within municipal sewer service area, or municipal water services are not available. The applicants have provided on-site sewage disposal system notification receipts from Nova Scotia Department of Environment and Climate Control. They've advised the applicants that the proposed campground would fall under the requirements outlined in the guidelines for monitoring public drinking water supplies. And the site plan, if it moves forward, would require a written submission from the design engineer that the grading and stormwater features have been installed as designed. The property is currently zoned RG, which is rural general and agricultural potential. The rezoning would be, if the rezoning was successful, the entire parcel would be rezoned to P2, which is commercial recreation, and it would be subject to compliance with section 25 of the land use bylaw. As part of the application, it was forwarded to various internal departments and external agencies, including Municipal Public Works, Nova Scotia Public Works, Nova Scotia Department of Environment and Climate Control, and the Village Fire Brigade. Municipal Public Works have provided a high-level review of the grading and stormwater management plan. And at this point, they have advised, based on the submission as prepared and certified by a professional engineer, that the proposed plan is workable. Nova Scotia Public Works have reviewed the proposal and found it acceptable. Additionally, the proposal was found acceptable by the Great Village Fire Brigade. So on the review, the proposal to rezone the property is a good use of the property. And the purpose of the rezoning is to permit a commercial campground, which would be subject to additional site plan approval. So based on the review, staff are recommending that municipal council approve the request to amend the Municipality of Colchester land use bylaw to rezone 2204 Highway 4 PID number 20131793 from RG Rural General and AP Agricultural Potential to P2 Commercial Recreation. And I'm just gonna grab the larger site plan. In case anyone does have any questions. What? Will you there?
Thank you, Jill. Does anyone have any questions of our senior planner? Council? Counselor Cooper?
Thank you, everybody. Jill,
Yes.
just one question. I do like the plan. I saw the smaller version there, but I really like it. My only question is, when we do things like take agricultural potential and change it to something like this, like what is the gist of taking that land and making it so it's okay to make this sort of instead of that as agriculture? Because I know we've had a good discussion on agricultural land. We don't want to lose it, but
Sure. And you are, through the chair to the counselor, you are correct. You know, there is certainly acknowledgement that once agricultural potential land is rezoned, generally it would be challenging to put it back to agricultural potential.
Right.
However, there is policy within the plan to allow council to consider a rezoning application similar to this. So agricultural potential, the lands were zoned that just strictly according to soil classification. So if you look at the actual zone, it's not contiguous right now. So there were parts of the property that did not fall under that soil classification. So in this case, and also the adjacent property is zoned to RG. So in this case, if you were to take the rezoning and go over to C2, it would be contiguous. And from the estimation of staff in reviewing the policy, there wouldn't be an ill effect to adjacent agricultural lands, and we're taking the least amount of land required to do the proposed use.
so it's basically the land that's being used there is not enough or together enough that it makes a good use for agricultural land. Sort of thing. Is that what you're saying?
It had been used as I believe it was a hayfield in the past. I'm just saying that,
So I thought.
yeah, up until I believe 2025, there was agriculture use of hay on there. I guess, but when we review it, what I'm saying is that it was based solely on soil condition. Like there were many other factors that go into, good agricultural land. And in this case, certainly a portion of it wasn't zoned AP. There was RG zoning on that parcel of property as well as the adjacent lands. So it wasn't, the soil condition wasn't such that the entire thing was
Yeah, you can
It's
put
farmable.
start a farm and farm the whole thing, right?
right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Deputy Mayor Sanderson,
Thank
please.
you, Madam Chair, through you to Pam. At a previous meeting on this rezoning application, we heard from a farmer, I think his name was Mr. Bowers, who apparently farms 300 to 400 acres, and he indicated that his land was adjacent to this property. And I'm not sure what he's doing on that farmland, but one of my concerns is whatever he's doing, and perhaps he's spraying, perhaps he's spreading manure. I just wonder what kind of effect that might have on this property. If there's people here and there's some spraying going on close by, that could be a problem, a safety issue. No, I don't know what he does, so.
I think,
He seemed to indicate it was very close to this, so
I think if, perhaps,
there's a buffer. It looks like, I'm just looking here, it Is that Google Maps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This piece here.
So. But what he said led me to believe that he was butted up against this property, but.
I believe the adjacent properties around it, there's also a fair bit of our rural general around it. And again, I would, I would assume that Department of Environment and Climate Control, like there, and as well as there would be some permitting as well there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of our senior planner? Councillor Fletcher?
Through Chair. Yeah, just a question, like I see on here, the wells, where the wells are being drilled. If, say, one of these wells come up with nothing, what's the, like, cause that might skew the whole, a bit of the plan. What's the procedure for that?
So again, what you're considering this evening is the rezoning portion of the application, is to rezone it to get it to P2, to then apply for a site plan. So if it has to change drastically, that would be dealt with at the site plan approval stage.
Any further questions of our senior planner? Thank you very much, Jill. Will the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee please present the report from the March 24, 2026 meeting? Johnson, please.
I will, thank you, Mayor. So the Colchester Planning Advisory Committee met on March 24, 2026, and reviewed an application by Brad Roy and Wayne Desjardins, representing Family Acres Campground, Inc., to amend the Colchester Land Use Bylaw to rezone property located at 2204 Highway 4, Folly Mountain, PID number 2013-1793 from RG Rural General Zone and AP to Agricultural Potential Zone to P2 Commercial Recreation Zone. The applicants approved an overview of the proposal and their vision for the business to the committee. Jill McGillicuddy provided an overview, very similar to what she did here tonight. The request for rezoning is to permit the property to be used as a commercial campground. However, successful rezoning would allow for all permitted uses within the P2 zone. The property is designated R, rural, and zoned RG, rural general, and AP, agricultural potential zones. Currently, the property is vacant. In accordance with the Colchester Land Use Bylaw 2025, site plan approval will be required for the development of the campground, which is separate from the zoning application, will require successful approval for development of the campground before it can proceed. Gillicuddy provided a review of several relevant planning policies, as well as comments from internal staff and external agencies. Comments and questions were received from the community members that were here present, and answers were provided by staff and the applicant. There were questions from PAC members and answers provided also by staff and the applicant. The committee recommended that council give first reading to the proposed rezoning and authorize a second reading and a public hearing.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Clerk, have any written submissions been received?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no written submissions received.
Thank you. And given the fact that there are no members of the public present who wish to address council, we shall move on to the next portion of this hearing. And that is the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee prepared to place a motion on the floor? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will. I move the council approve the request to amend the Colchester Land Use Bylaw to rezone property located at 2204 Highway 4, Folly Mountain, PID number 2013-1793 from RG Rural General Zone and AP Agricultural Potential Zone to P2 Commercial Recreation Zone.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Fletcher. Discussion on the motion? The question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by, please use your, your clickers. And the vote is closed and the motion passes unanimously. The approval of the land use bylaw amendment by council is appealable. I'll wait till you finish rattling your papers. wait for a moment. No problem. The approval of the land use bylaw amendment by council is appealable to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. Any appeal of council's decision must be made within 14 days of the advertising of this decision. That concludes this hearing, council. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Ms. Desjardins and Mr. Roy for being here.
We hope that each and every one is on our grand opening. It'll be something-
We'll have a big party once we're done
We'll
constructing.
we plan on having something pretty spectacular for grand opening. Really like to see, we'd like to have a ribbon cutting, we'd really like to see every one of you if you can come. Thank you very much.
Send us the invitation. Thank you. Councilors, you have a copy of the agenda before you. And I want to bring to your attention that item 6.1, the terms of reference are on the table for the committee. And that there's an addition, and number 6.4 is the PAC report, April 22. And you will find that on table. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'm prepared to entertain a motion. The agenda be accepted as amended, moved by Councillor Weatherby, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. I have to check with Tracy now every time I ask that question. A contrary-minded nay. The motion is carried. The agenda is accepted as amended. Approval of minutes from meeting held on March 26. I'm prepared to entertain a motion with regards to those minutes. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sanderson, that the minutes of March 26, 2026 be approved as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded nay. The motion is carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we shall move on to our standing committee reports and recommendations. And council committee report and recommendations from April 16. Deputy Mayor Sanderson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is the personnel policy 5.14, personal use of social media. I move that council approves the new personnel policy 5.14, personal use of social media as presented, and a copy of the policy is attached. And you will have received a memo from our HR specialist, Kelly McIsaac, dated April 23rd, to be considered for this meeting. And there was a suggestion by our HR specialist to consider a change in the wording. We had discussed number 10. The way it reads now is employees shall not interact from personal social media accounts with municipal social media posts, except to repost information about municipal services, events, or job opportunities. And the suggested new number 10 is employees shall not interact from personal social media accounts with municipal social media posts, except to interact with posts about municipal services, events, job opportunities, or other municipal initiatives in a positive, respectful manner. So we have, did we get a seconder? Sorry, on that motion?
The motion hasn't
Sorry, I
been made
moved it and
yet.
I don't think
The motion hasn't been made yet.
I did.
Did you make the motion?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance to ask.
No, I guess you didn't.
I jumped right ahead of you.
Okay, you did indeed. So the motion is as amended.
Well, that's for council to consider, so I was
Okay.
just. reading
So the
what was
motion
suggested.
right now is then
As presented.
as presented. And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Weatherby. And discussion on the motion?
Question.
I guess I'd like to ask, does anybody like the suggested wording for number 10, the old versus the new?
Yes. Yeah, Deputy Mayor? Counselor Martell.
Through you to Deputy Mayor, I do support that amendment, but I'm not sure policy wise, we have to vote on the motion in front of us before we can make the amendment.
And
Dennis.
You
sorry.
could- Sorry, Madam Chair, you could
Mhm.
propose the amendment to your motion
Yes,
that amend it so that the new language of proposed 10 be included.
Mhm.
I'm prepared to suggest that we amend the motion to include the new language that our HR specialist has provided in number 10. So I would say that move the council approves the new personnel policy, personal use of social media as amended.
Is that okay?
If the seconder is
Second.
okay.
And the seconder agree with that? All right.
Seconder agreed.
The
to
seconder
amend, so
agreed,
we'll-
yes, Counselor Weatherby, yes, I've already asked that question. You have an amended motion before you, councillors, any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And we will be opening the vote. Voting is closed and one nay, Councillor Cooper. And Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. Number 2, the I am responding request from Colchester Firefighters Association. I move that council approves that the municipality,
Recuse.
we've got,
And would the record show that Councillor Richardson is recusing himself from this discussion? And Councillor Fletcher.
I move that council approves that the municipality cover 3-year annual subscription costs in the amount of $8,851 USD for the I am responding software for the municipality's fire services.
And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cooper. Any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And your voting is up. Voting closes and the motion is carried. And Councillor Richardson and Councillor Fletcher are back at the table. Deputy Mayor, please.
Item 3 is a streetlight request, Tatamagouche. I move that council approves the installation of 2 streetlights at the intersection of Highway 6 with Taptree Settlement Road, Rockland Road, to be funded by the general tax rate.
And seconded by Councillor Martell. And discussion on the motion? Question has been called and the voting is up. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. And Deputy Mayor, please.
Item 4, amendments to Citizen Monitoring Committee terms of reference for wind power projects. I move that council approves the amended terms of reference for the Citizen Monitoring Committee for wind power projects as presented.
And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Johnson. Discussion on the motion? Question has been called. And your voting is up. And motion carries unanimously. Deputy Mayor?
Item 5, council travelers insurance policy. I move that council approves that insurance policy number 1 RC 25 business accident program provided by Beneva be cancelled.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Weatherby. And discussion on the motion? Question has been called. And voting is up. Motion carries unanimously. And Deputy Mayor, please.
Item number 6, Ice Pond Drive, request for speed bumps. I move that council approves that a letter be sent to area manager Chris Birch with Nova Scotia Public Works, requesting speed bumps on Ice Pond Drive during the upcoming paving this year.
And Counselor, let the record show that Counselor Fletcher recused herself from this issue. And it's been seconded by Counselor Johnson. Discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question has been called and voting is up. And one nay, Counselor Martel, and the motion carries. And Counselor Fletcher has returned to the table. The next item on the agenda is the Flood Advisory Committee minutes of meeting April 14, 2026. You have the minutes before you. I'm prepared to entertain a motion that these be accepted for information. Moved by Counselor Patton. Seconded by Counselor Cooper. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. The question has been called and your voting is up. Counselor Johnson, were you voting? And the vote closes. Motion carries unanimously. The minutes of the Flood Advisory Committee for April 14 have been accepted as presented. Unanimous vote. The next item is the Nominating Committee minutes, report and recommendation from April 2025 meeting. The Nominating Committee met on April 20, 2026 to review expressions of interest for vacancies on Audit Committee, Citizen Monitoring Committee for Wind Power Projects, DeBert Water Utility, and Colchester Planning Advisory Committee. The following recommendations have been made by the committee: that Council appoints Steve Fitzsimmons to the Audit Committee, that Council appoints Nancy Frame as citizen representative to the Citizen Monitoring Committee for the Windy Ridge Canuck Wind Power Projects, and Ray Miriam to the Citizen Monitoring Committee for the Higgins Mountain Wind Power Project, and that Council appoints Councillor Leggett as the Council representative for the DeBert Water Utility Committee, and Derek Taylor and Dustin Ewell as citizen representatives for the DeBert Water Utility Committee, that Council appoints Angela Grant and Mallory Wall as citizen representatives for the Colchester Planning Advisory Committee. I'm prepared to entertain a motion that those recommendations be accepted as presented. Moved by Councillor Patton, seconded by Councillor Brown. Any discussion on the motion? The question has been called and your voting is up. Voting is closed and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. The next item is the Planning Advisory Committee report of the April 22, 2026 meeting, and I'm prepared to entertain a motion this be accepted for information. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sanderson. Any discussion on the motion? I see no. Are you ready for the question? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded nay. Motion carried unanimously. The minutes of the PAC report, April 22, are accepted as presented. Moving on to our action items. We have the first reading of proposed amendment to the Colchester Land Use Bylaw on lands owned by Angel Adams, ID 2004576 in Greenfield. And I'm going to ask our Director of Community Development, Paul Smith, to address this, please.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. This involves a request by the property owner, Angel Adams, who's asked to have property located in Greenfield to be rezoned from rural general to rural industrial, and this is for the purpose of establishing an auto salvage business on the property that's currently operated by Scott Hill of Import Haven Auto Services. The Colchester Planning Advisory Committee met last week on April 22nd. And as the minutes would suggest, would be recommending to council that this be approved. Under the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, any land use bylaw application requires 2 readings. This one is before you to advance this requested amendment to be granted first reading and advance to second reading, which has been scheduled for May 28th of your next regular council meeting. And at that time, you will receive a staff report and that would look at merits of approving the amendment. This will also involve a public hearing as we saw tonight, similar to what we saw this evening. So as with any of these types of requests, you have 2 options. First one being to approve first reading and advance to second reading next month, or not to approve first reading, and which essentially ends process. Staff are recommending, as is, if you see that this first reading be approved and subsequently the request towards a public hearing and second reading at your next monthly meeting.
Thank you, Paul. I'm prepared to entertain a motion with regards to this first reading. Deputy Mayor Sanderson, please.
I move that council approves at first reading the application to amend the Colchester land use bylaw as presented and directs that the proposed amendment be forwarded to a public hearing with final consideration deferred until second reading following the public hearing.
Thank you. And seconder? Seconded by Councillor Johnson. Discussion on the motion. Question has been called. And your vote is up. Voting is concluded and the vote is unanimous. Motion is carried. Thank you. And again, for the next item, first reading of the proposed administrative amendments to the Colchester land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy. Paul?
Sure. And thank you, Madam Mayor, and almost identical to the last action item. The purpose of this one is to advance quite a few administrative amendments to our Colchester Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw, which we have been administering now for a year, been tracking quite a number of changes and some ambiguities within the plan that do require some clarification. And this, of course, is typical of any new document that comes into force. We discover sort of through situational analysis what's working, what doesn't work, and the bulk of these really deal with some inconsistencies between the documents, such as mapping errors, typos, cross-referencing, and some added clarification to both the definitions and the text within the documents. Again, the Planning Advisory Committee met on April 22nd to discuss these. As well as some as well as to have some discussion around the topic of shipping containers, which has been sort of an ongoing topic of consideration, and as in terms of where they're located on lots in our residential areas in central Colchester. The Plan Advisory Committee last week again reviewed the provisions that we have in our plan, and are not recommending that we change those provisions that we have. They too met about the proposed administrative amendments, and are recommending that council advance these changes, both the administrative amendments and the shipping container amendments, to first reading, second reading scheduled for March or May 28th, your next regular council meeting, at which time staff will be there to provide a full report on all of the changes considered by the Planning Advisory Committee. So again, you have two options, give this set of amendments first reading and advance it to second reading next month, or not to give it first reading, and essentially process just stops here and now. However, staff along with the Planning Advisory Committee are recommending council give these changes first reading, and that we schedule a public hearing and second reading for your next council meeting.
Thank you, Paul. Prepare to enter motion. Councillor Weatherby.
I move the council approves at first reading the application for proposed administrative amendments to the Colchester Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw as presented, and directs that the proposed amendments be forwarded to a public hearing, with the final consideration deferred until second reading following the public hearing.
And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Kennedy. And discussion on the motion? First, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to you, Paul. So it's the CCAN thing back again. So I had a discussion after our PAC meeting, John Vizards, and so I think you said tonight, Central Colchester. What do you?
Look, their location in central Colchester or in their subdivision.
So
do you through the maps?
Okay, that's what I wanted to say. So,
yeah.
So John's was, what if I've got some east? Do they follow the same policy that we're gonna put through for the Village of Bible Hill?
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah. So I told my answer. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Chair, through you to Paul.
Yes.
Paul, just a couple of questions. Under area map amendments, number 1, the land map law we changed to residential. And it's, as I've known, and commercial. So why wouldn't we take the opportunity?
That was on the future land use.
On the amendments.
So
1-3.
yes, okay. That. Yeah, Pam will be able to give you a fuller explanation as to why that change was needed or is being recommended. It just escapes me right now as to why. We'll have a fuller discussion on that at the public hearing.
Next question.
Yep.
Through the chair to you. Number 18, land use bylaw amendments. There what limit the number of special occasions can be on a property. That was for what type of property are we talking about? What type of occasion, special occasions?
Number 18. Sorry. Yeah, so special occasions, I mean, we've in the past had sort of recurring special occasions that it almost becomes what seems to be a permanent use of the property. So it's sort of like it's a bit of a loophole. And we will have applications. I can't tell you exactly what they are, but you know, 8 to 10 special occasions on a property, which it really isn't what that provision is intended to do. It's 1 or 2 or 3 ofs, and but the principal use of the property ought to remain as what the zoning would allow.
Okay, so we're not telling someone with 18 kids they can only afford birthday parties.
No.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Then are you ready for the question? Your voting is up. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Paul. The next item on the agenda is the authority to award Birch Street sidewalk tender. And I'm going to ask our Director of Public Works, Michelle, to address this, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The item before you this evening is to grant Main Council Committee authority to award a tender. This is for the replacement of an old asphalt sidewalk on Birch Street with a new concrete sidewalk. This item is Council's approved capital 5-year budget for $300,000. And in the event that the tenders come in above budget, then we want the opportunity to have Council Committee review the numbers and then approve the work if necessary. Once the tenders close, if we are within budget, then this wouldn't need to come before Council.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm prepared to entertain a motion. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council authorize May Council Committee to approve awarding the tender for the replacement of Birch Street sidewalk. The bid prices do exceed the allocated budget.
And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Discussion on the motion?
The
The question has been called and your voting is up. And motion carries unanimously. The next item is the long-term lease for the Village of Tatamagouche Parkland. And I'm going to ask our Director of Community Service, Paul, to address this as well, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Craig is here to ask questions or answer questions. Oops. As he's been more directly involved in this, along with Pam, than I have, but nonetheless, this action item is really to give you, provide council with an update on the Parkland in the Village of Tatamagouche, and to seek council's approval to enter into a long-term lease for the property. You may recall last year that staff had been in discussions with the Chignecto Center Regional Center for Education about acquiring land within the village of Bible Hill, adjacent to our library, for the use of Parkland. And an action item was before you last June to ask for approval to purchase this tract of land and draft a purchase and sale agreement. Unfortunately, since that time, and through staff's discussions with the CCRCE, we were informed recently that they are unable to sell the property, but would be willing to give us a long-term lease that would essentially amount to a 99-year agreement for the land for that purpose. It's a 4-acre parcel of land that's owned by the school board and located directly adjacent to our library. And given its location within the community and proximity to the library, there's some great opportunities for co-programming the space. And while the municipality would assist the village commission in some of the initial planning and design of this space, the village would be looking towards provincial and municipal funding sources to apply for its development and operation. The village's interest in this land it's longstanding. They've had their eye on it for a while. Discussions with the school board have ensued for Craig, a few years at least. But unfortunately, they don't find themselves in a position to sell it and are as an option if we would consider the long-term lease. In spite of any other options, this council can agree to enter into the 99-year lease agreement with the school board for this property and its purpose. Or you could decide against it. And I'm not sure if we decide against it, that won't give the village many other options for a community park other than to sort of look elsewhere in the community. So staff therefore recommend that council agree to entering into this long-term lease for the property that would be used as parkland for the village of Tatamagouche.
Counselor, and I'm prepared to entertain a motion. Counselor Martell.
A motion that council approve proceeding with a 99-year lease with the Chignecto Central Regional Center for Education for land to be used as parkland for the village of Tatamagouche, and that the mayor and/or CAO be authorized to sign said lease.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Patton. Discussion on the motion? Counselor Cooper.
Yeah. Blair, you Paul. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's probably gonna be for lease and everything, but do you know how much we're talking about, like cost is or anything?
I may, through the chair to you, Counselor, I may defer to.
Excuse me, I'll defer to our solicitor, please.
Okay.
It's drafted for $1. No consideration.
Yeah, that's what I.
Thank you. That's pretty reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions of Paul or of Craig, since he is this evening with us? Question has been called. And your voting is up. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. And thank you, Paul and Craig. The next item on our agenda is the budget and tax rate approval, 2026-27 budget. And I'm going to ask our Director of Corporate Services, Scott, to address this, please.
Thanks, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. The attached action item is seeking approval for the 26-27 operating budget and tax rates. Council committee did have an opportunity to meet and review the budget on 2 occasions through meetings held on April 13th and the 20th. During that time, we went over the draft budget. We looked at some strategic decisions with respect to the budget and also the grants that council wished to put in place. Having said that, the budget document was then referred to council for approval. It's essentially a balanced budget with a tax rate of 88.5 cents residential and $2.28 for commercial, so no change in the rates. And attached as well in the action item is the 26-27 budget summary, a list of all the recommendations from the additions and deletions meeting on April 20th that the committee made to council. So if there's any questions, happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Scott. I'm prepared to entertain a motion and then open the floor for discussion. Councillor Weatherby.
Although I said I wouldn't read this motion after last year's motion, I will do it. I recommend the council recommend that the 26-27 operating budget be approved with the auditor additions and deletions as set out at the council committee meeting held on April 20th, 2026, with the residential tax rate being held at 88.5 cents and the commercial tax rate being held at $2.28. And that the following tax resolution be approved as presented. Tax rate resolution, whereas the municipal council of the county of Colchester is required to levy rates which it deems sufficient to raise the sum required to defray the expenditure of the municipality of the county of Colchester for the current 12-month fiscal period. Resolved that pursuant to section 72 of the Municipal Government Act, the municipal council and the municipality of the council of Colchester estimates that sums amounting to $38,359,028 are required for the lawful purpose of the municipality for the year ending March 31st, 2027. After crediting the probable revenue from all sources other than rates for the abandoned abatement and losses which occur in the collection of taxes for the said year, which may not be collected or collectible. Further resolved that the said council authorize levying and collection of a rate of 88.5 cents on each $100 of assessed value of the residential and resource property assessed in the 2026 assessment roll. Further resolved that the said council authorize the levy and collection of a rate of $2.28 on each $100 on the assessed value of commercial property assessed in the 2025 assessment roll. Further resolved that pursuant to section 78 of the Municipal Government Act, in lieu of all rates and taxes of the municipality, an owner of forest property to which the said section applies shall pay tax equal to 25 cents per acre on holdings of 50,000 or less and 40 cents per acre on holdings greater than 50,000 acres. And where an area, village or commission rate is levied for fire protection, the owner shall pay an additional tax of 1 cent per acre. Further resolved that the said council hereby requires payment of said rates to be made to the tax collector or treasurer of the said municipality on or before the 31st day of August 2026. Further resolved that said council hereby imposes an additional percentage charge of 12% per annum on all rates and taxes remaining unpaid after the 31st day of August 2026.
Thank you, Counselor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Johnson. And when you go on your, in the resolution, paragraph 4, further resolved that said council authorize the levying and collection of a rate of $2.28 on each $100 of the assessed value of commercial property assessed in the 2026 assessment roll. There's just a little typo there. I want to correct for you. Anything further, Councillor Weatherby? Did you wish to address this? Your microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Cooper?
Yeah, I noticed when Council Weatherby started, he did recommended. That same as moving. Same thing. Okay.
Further discussion, Councillor Benmar.
Thank you, Mayor Blair. I wanted to bring this to council's attention. I had planned on making an amendment, but in talking with Dan, we're gonna change it a little bit. So I was approached by the director for CTCL probably about a month or 2 months ago in regards to needing more financial assistance. They are facing some financial constraints. They're, I believe, over capacity. And I was gonna ask if we could raise their 10,000 to an additional 10,000, but I do not have any budgets or anything to back any of that up. So I'm going to reach back out to them and ask them if they would like to do a presentation and go through Tracy for that process. I just wanted to bring it up because it may come up in the future that possibly we could help them out a little bit. I know that they're going to be heavily involved with the transit, which will be in the next on this agenda, but I think that's still probably a year or 2 years out before we actually get rolling on that. So if we can help them in the meantime, I think would be great. So they do provide an excellent service to the residents of Colchester County. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and our CAO, please.
Thank you through the chair. So as the councillor said, we had a conversation about this, and as an organization, that if they could articulate the pressures that they have, and we do have on our agenda, the next item around the work that's coming around transportation. So council, obviously, any point in time during the year can take a request and consider it. So my recommendation and where the councillor has gone with this is that get their paperwork together, get in the queue with Tracy to do a presentation so we can have a full discussion around the pressures that they're having, and then council can look at that during the year. And if you wish to support whatever their ask would be, you can do so at that time out of the existing funds.
Thank you. Now you have a motion on the floor. Are there any further questions to the motion? Councillor Martel.
Thank you, Mayor. I personally am having a challenge with reconciling a vote on this budget of 38+ million. There's 37 million that I'm good with. I'd like to draw your attention to page 56, 57 of our municipal operating budget draft, where it states that for the Rath Eastlink Center, the estimated grant amount is set at the county's 50% of the operating share, which is shared between the town of Truro and Colchester County. So that amount's estimated at $750,000, and that's outlined in the operating agreement between the town, the county, and the society. Further, it says this is based on, and it's right here, the preliminary budget presented by the rec operations staff. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position where we have not received a presentation of an operating budget for 26-27, or a presentation of the capital budget to proceed with a vote on funding for the rec according to the operating agreement, which was formalized by the town and the county and the society in January. The operating agreement states that the operating budget shall be prepared and presented by the last day of February of the preceding fiscal year or within the timeframes established from time to time by the municipality and the town for the submission of operating budgets and its various departments. Council has not been provided with a request for an extension from the current society board to present a budget. We have not scheduled a joint meeting to approve a budget, and yet tonight we are faced with a decision on whether or not to vote in favor of a budget that we have not been presented with. I can understand that one might say that the new board has not had enough time to work through all the items that were put in front of them when they took on this new role. In my opinion, the immediate previous board was given the same amount of time, about 4 months, to provide adequate information to the county and update on its activities before council motioned to end the operating agreement. To date, we have not received an update at council on the activities of the newly elected board. Further, it's my recollection that when the past two previous boards were in breach of the operating agreement, this council wrote letters requiring them to immediately correct course and provide the information that we required to make decisions. In my opinion, I would hope that this council will also provide a letter to the sitting rec board, reminding them of its obligations to provide these reports in a timely manner so that this will not happen in future years. Further, within the operating agreement, it requires that the registry of joint stocks be updated within 14 days of a change of directors. I will point out once again that the directors that are listed currently on the registry of joint stocks, along with the recognized agent, are not the current directors serving. This information has not been updated in accordance with the operating agreement as well as the act. In October, following this council's decision to end the operating agreement with the society, a news release was issued which said, and I quote, "The municipality emphasizes that this decision is also in no way a reflection of the efforts of the society board." That is the opposite, in my opinion, of the views that have been expressed at this council. On January 27th, I shared my concerns about the updated version of the operating agreement that was being voted on that would form the basis of this new governance for the society. There were comments made in open session about the job not being done, that somewhere down the road, we'd have a citizens advisory committee that would be in place, and comments that suggested that they were getting nowhere, absolutely nowhere, and we weren't getting information. We had no financial information that we'd asked for. I served on the 2 previous boards, and I find those remarks highly insulting, as well as to the others who served. And we're now sitting here today, and I'm asking for financials, which we do not have, for a joint council meeting, which is not scheduled. And I'm asking that a budget be approved from the rec before we approve our budget. And I'd also like to know what the status is for a Citizens Advisory Council, committee, which we had promised. We speak of wanting to be open and transparent with our taxpayers, and yet tonight in this budget, there is a $300,000 surplus that was allotted to the rec, along with $750,000 for operating, nearly $1 million, just over $1 million on a budget without a timeline to know when we will actually see financials. We are being asked between violating our own operating agreements with the town and the rec and approving this budget.
Thank you for your statement, Councilor. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. A lot of questions asked, but I'll answer a few of them here. Councilor Martell said that the new board has not had enough time. Well, we've had enough time, but the problem is that we've had the problem of no CEO for 6 months and no CFO for the last month. At the most opportune time, we could probably need to put a budget together. So we've got an interim CEO out there that's been there for, I believe, 5 weeks this week. We've got some staff that, we're not providing them with the numbers in a time. So I'm not making excuses for anybody. We will have a budget But it's not as if we didn't have enough time. The board has enough time, but the personnel out there just didn't have the people in place to put a budget in front of us. They've been working on it now for, I would say, last 3 weeks. We did see it first drafted this morning. And I remember we have, and I'll update that here in a bit. So they are getting close. I think that everybody in this room probably say is that you're probably expecting a deficit out there. If anybody thinks we're gonna get a balanced budget come back, which we've asked for, that's why I went back today. It's no secret. We've got a lot of deficiencies out there that we have to fix, and these aren't new. So I'm gonna go through something here a little later when I have a chance and give you an update of what we went through this morning on mostly operational costs. We're gonna expect it to come across here in the next 3 years is their time frame for this, but I'm not gonna answer all of them. I understand there's no budget. We heard that before. There's no one in this room gonna argue there's no budget, but I'll tell you what, we have to move forward, and I expect it will.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patton.
Just one quick question for you to Councillor Johnson. In regard to the budget for the rec, where do we stand with the rawhide agreement? Is that to be paid, or what are we doing there and how much?
I'll ask our CAO to address that, please.
Sure. So through the chair, and the reason that I chimed in is that there are discussions going on with regards to that contract with Rawhide, and it'd be inappropriate to enter in a public session.
Any further questions? Councillor Benoit.
Thank you, Chair. I guess just asking, I don't know, just listening to Councillor Martel, but maybe through you to Scott. So are we able to still pass the budget if we do not have the rec budget? I know we usually have to have financials, so are we okay knowing that the rec is gonna be in a deficit, so have to put financials there, I guess? Are we okay to still pass the budget tonight? And budget?
Yeah, I think you're okay in terms of passing it tonight. I mean, obviously, there was agreement with the society, but that doesn't preclude you from passing your budget. And I think in terms of deadlines for our own organization, the municipality, I think it is important to have the budget put in place so we can move forward and you know, ensure that we have our own revenue sources coming in during the year.
So, I guess, okay, so does not having that budget, that's not gonna affect?
No, well, I mean, there's always the potential that you could have a variance on any expense. You know, the rec funding could be one, there could be a variance, but that could happen in any year. So, and it could happen with any particular department or line item. So, you know, I think we have to work on what we know right now as of today and move forward with it. And then, you know, there will be, you know, at the end of next year, when we get to the end of the fiscal year, there's always going to be variances one way or the other, but the municipalities in good shape that they can you know, weather variances and I'm not concerned, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Deputy Mayor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mayor Blair. Just a question on Councillor Martel's comment about the registry of joint stocks. Who's responsible for updating the directors on the registry? Perhaps through you,
Dennis?
Dennis?
We can follow up with
Okay.
that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Further questions? Council, you have a motion. Councillor Benoit?
Sorry, through you to Councillor Johnson. So, understanding what you had mentioned about the budget, do you foresee after this budget goes through that any other budgets going forward will be in a timely fashion?
We only have
Providing.
one budget. I'm sorry. We only have one operating. We're gonna say that's it. It covers the whole fiscal year. And it's included in that. That's why it's important that we have to see it. But we've asked for a balanced budget. We asked for it. They haven't provided that yet, so set it back and we're gonna come back to it again.
But going forward, like say for next year and stuff,
Please address through the chair.
my apologies, through you to Counselor Johnson. So, but going forward, like the next year, everything should be done on time and everything.
Through the chair, I would hope that we have,
Thank you.
I would hope that we have a CEO in place and a CFO, it's their full time.
Any further questions, council? You have a motion before you, and are we ready to vote? Question has been called. And the vote is up. And one no vote, Councillor Patton, the motion carries by majority. Thank you, council. And I'd like to make a statement with regards to our budget. Colchester County Council has approved this evening its 2026-27 operating budget with no increase to residential or commercial tax rates. This marks the 8th time in 9 years that the municipality has held tax rates steady, with only a modest half-cent increase occurring in 2019. Residential property owners will continue to pay 88.5 cents and commercial property owners $2.28 per $100 of assessed value, as determined by Property Valuation Services Corporation, the independent, not-for-profit agency responsible for all property assessments in Nova Scotia. This year's balanced operating budget totals just over $47 million, up from $45 million last year. Steady growth in new construction and property values has continued to increase residential and commercial tax revenues, enabling the municipality to expand services without raising tax rates. The 2026-27 budget sustains core programs and services, prioritizes critical infrastructure, and promotes economic development and community well-being. It also continues funding for the county's comprehensive grant programs for local not-for-profit and volunteer organizations. Our dedicated community groups continue to persevere through challenging economic times. We value their contributions and are glad to support their work, which provides such vital services and facilities throughout the county. This year, 45% of the municipality's tax revenue, $21 million, will be transferred to the province to support services such as education, libraries, policing, and assessment. Education costs alone increased by $714,198, that is 6.8% this year, following last year's $828,000 rise. Policing costs grew by 3.43%. And given Colchester County's large geographic area and recent history, community safety remains a top priority. Accordingly, the budget provides for 3 additional officers, building on the 3 added in 2025. The remaining 55% of the municipality's operating budget is used to fund essential local services such as solid waste management, recreation services, wastewater treatment, community and environmental planning, economic development, and emergency management services. With community growth and demand for services continuing to rise, an increased investment of $500,000 in staffing and facilities was necessary to keep pace this year. Other notable items include $100,000 added for public transit, and $500,000 for construction of a fire protection system that will serve the DeBert Business Park and support future developments such as the McMahway DeBert Cultural Center. Council also set aside $315,500 this year to be added to the annual $200,000 reserve fund designated for capital cost repairs at the Rath Eastlink Community Center. This is in addition to the annual $750,000 allocation for rec operations. Despite increasing financial pressures, including continued rising mandatory contributions to the province, we have again delivered a responsible, forward-looking budget, one that reflects thoughtful planning, accommodates growth, and demonstrates our commitment to the residents we serve. I'm proud of our council and staff for the extensive work, rigorous review, and strong financial stewardship that has shaped this budget, especially with no tax increase. Thank you, Council. Thank you for all you have done. Thank you, staff, for all that you have done in preparation of this budget. Moving on to the next item is the Regional Transit Study. And I'm going to ask our Economic Development Officer, Jen, if she would address this, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a bit of a presentation, so I'm just
First,
pardon?
You turned it off.
Apologies, sorry. I have a bit of a presentation, so I'm just going to hook that into the system.
Yes, please.
All right, so this evening, we've included in your package the final report regarding our regional transit feasibility study. It's a lengthy report, so I put together a bit of presentation just to highlight, I would say, some important pieces of the report. This evening, we're really just looking for direction for council to proceed and no type of financial commitments this evening, aside from what you've already approved in your existing operational budget, which is the transit coordinator position jointly with the town of Truro. And we'll discuss that as we go along. But essentially just looking for feedback to proceed with kind of some next steps and then inevitably towards hiring that joint position. So as we go along, if there is specific questions, feel free to let me know. I mean, we don't want to belabor the presentation, but where it's a bit of information, happy to stop and kind of address certain pieces if we need to. So we'll start off with kind of the purpose. As you all are aware, transit is essential infrastructure at this point in communities and needed to support growing communities like ours in Colchester. So we partnered with the town of Truro to essentially ensure that we understood fully what the community needs are and to take a look at the design options for this type of system. And then also to look at getting a recommendation on how we govern and what type of model we're looking at when it comes to a transit system in the region. So tonight we're just going to outline the highlights of the presentation and then talk about how we move forward. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the study really positions transit as essential infrastructure in order to support council's greater goals like economic growth, sustainability, affordability for our communities and housing. We really need this type of infrastructure to support that growth. And the study really says that, the transit's never going to be a profit center for the municipality, as I'm sure you're all aware. It is feasible, but essentially is there to support and allow for growth in the communities. At this point in time, we do have CTCL, which was spoken about earlier this evening. It's a very reliable and fantastic service for the community, but it's definitely reached its capacity along with our public health transport systems. Those have all reached capacity. So essentially, unless you're one of those equity deserving groups that's able to access those services, you do have no option at this point aside from purchasing a vehicle or walking or utilizing a bike. So really transit will allow movement in our community, growth, and provide us to reach our larger goals. So the part of the study, a big part of it was engagement. Engagement took place both in the spring of 2025 and then again in the fall of 2025. We did a variety of things. We did public surveys. We also hosted things like World Cafe sessions. We had one-on-one interviews with stakeholders. We even had our consultants go out to grocery stores, the Dally C, businesses in Birch Business Park, and meet with all of those stakeholders to really understand the needs, talk one-on-one, and then also have larger opportunity for general feedback like surveys. We had great survey response in the region. And then we also, during our pop-up sessions, the uptick was great. We had people lining up to speak to us and really interested, engaged conversations. So fantastic feedback. One of the big things that I'll note is that there was a preference for fixed route systems, which means that the community really said, we can't rely on these on-demand services like a taxi or a CTCL where you have to schedule rides. We need to know that a bus is showing up at this specific place at this specific time every Tuesday morning when I need to get to my appointment or my place of employment. The other piece that was identified in feedback was that consistent schedules will be extremely important. People need to rely on getting to work and getting to pick their children up from daycare, and they want to feel that the services are reliable and consistent. And then thirdly is that weekend service was a priority. It wasn't just about getting people to jobs Monday through Friday. It was about getting to their social activities, to their grocery stores, to run errands. And then also it was identified that a lot of our community doesn't work a conventional 9-to-5 Monday to Friday job, and that we need to make sure that they were able to get to their place of work during shift work or on weekends as well. So that was just a little bit about the engagement, a general kind of overview there. We looked at a number of, research-based items to provide insight on the recommended network that's being proposed within the study. Of course, we looked at policy, municipal policy, provincial and federal, and to ensure that what they were recommending aligned with all those policies. And additionally, we looked at demographic analysis to ensure we understood where people are living, where they're coming from, and where they're going. And that's the trip patterns and trip generators that we looked at. And then, of course, we fed into those research-based evidence pieces, the stakeholder engagement and what we heard from our community. So I'm going to just quickly show you because I think it helps to inform the shape and the recommended network that's being prescribed in this study. But here's your population density map of Truro and Colchester. And how these maps work is the darker the color, the more dense the area. So in this is general population. As you can see, of course, downtown Truro is your most popularly dense area in the region. But also you can see kind of some areas within the outskirts of Colchester that also have dense populated areas. So this informs kind of how we get to those people and where the network should push buses to go. And then, of course, we wanted to look at a variety of demographics that we know specifically need and will use transit. Of course, our low-income households. So this is a population density of our low-income households and where the most dense areas are within the region for those types of demographics. Next, population of seniors. Of course, seniors heavily rely on transit. And this is the population density map that have fed into the overall network recommendations. And then lastly, we looked at visible minority residents and where they were living to ensure that those areas are being captured within the bus routes as well. The next piece that we looked at was our origin and our destination mapping. So we said, both through public survey and one-on-one engagements, where are you coming and where do you need to go? And we asked residents to highlight 3 locations that they were going on a regular basis. And what this map describes is a red dot shows where people are starting from, a green dot shows where people are going. And obviously there's going to be identified clusters within these maps, which really allows us to understand where our hubs for the transit system need to be. So specifically downtown Truro, of course, but you'll notice there's clusters along Roby Street, your shopping down or your core area to access shopping and retail. And then there's also a cluster in your Abenaki Road. So of course the rec and our health, our hospital systems. So those were the 3 identified destination clusters. And the origin clusters were also very focused on kind of your downtown core, Salmon River and Babel Hill area. And then this is your trip generator. So when I mentioned where people were asked where they want to go and where those hubs need to be, here's some heat mapping to show where those 3 areas were localized. And the 3 identified hub areas really were downtown core, Roby Street, the shopping mall, of course, and then Abenaki Rec hospital area. Another thing that we talked about, which is an important conversation for transit systems to understand, is does the community prioritize the frequency of how often buses are coming? Or do we want to look at prioritizing how much of a general area we need to service? And there's definitely some trade-off here, of course. In order to have a reliable, convenient, accessible service, it needs to be frequent, of course, but that means you can't go as big as you might like to go, and you might not be able to access all areas of your region. But it's a trade-off because you need the system to be reliable and we need the uptake to be strong. So when our consultants looked at this, they identified that 45% preferred more frequent service and 55% preferred a broader coverage. So we were very split down the middle of what was preferred regionally. But the feedback was really it needs to be balanced. We can only go so big with this system because, of course, there's a cost associated as far wide as your footprint goes. So the proposed networks really focuses on a reliable core network that does service a larger geographical region, but still allows for reliable service, and it also has room to grow over time. So the big thing I'll say about the recommended service is that it's just a starting point. As these systems launch and as they go along, they're constantly changing. If you look at your other regions, new bus routes are coming along every single day. So just because these bus routes are identified here today doesn't mean that they'll actually ultimately be the bus route that hits the ground when we launch this system. It's just a starting point. And we really need a starting point to get this off the ground. So I forgot to go over this slide, sorry. This is just really the mapping areas that we looked at when we considered frequency and coverage. This first map shows the coverage area. The yellow area is broader, obviously, than your downtown area, and it includes a DeBert route. This area is more, more closely focused. It does include Valley, Bible Hill, and portions of Salmon River, takes you out to Fundy Discovery Site, and includes Millbrook as well, but excludes kind of these other regions, specifically Central Lower Onslow, and then up further to Brookfield. So the concept that was proposed in the study, and the full study is in your package this evening, but these are kind of the highlights of what's proposed. Obviously, there's more complex than this, but basically it's saying we should look at 4 fixed routes that serve Truro and Central Colchester, and then 1 fixed route that connects directly to DeBert, and it would be an express route that essentially is focused on getting people to their place of employment. It wouldn't have many stops along the way, whereas the other route systems would have multiple stops and connect you to a variety of hubs and centralized locations. The 2 primary hubs that the study is recommending is saying that we should recommend a hub in downtown Truro, and then also a hub over by the hospital, rec, Walmart area. And then, of course, the primary focus here is to get people to education, health, retail, and your employment places. So this is the network here. Your 4 fixed routes are the blue, purple, I guess it'd be a pinkish red color, and then the green. And then your orange route, Route 10, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but it's also in your package. Route 10 is your express shuttle to DeBert, which is identified kind of down in this inset area. Your blue route connects, actually, I'll start here. So your 2 hubs, as I mentioned before, is Civic Square, and then over by the hospital and rec center. And routes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 10 all cross through and have a centralized stop location in Civic Square. And routes 1, 3, and 4 have a centralized stop at the health center. These routes, like I mentioned before, kind of hit your core destinations based on this density mapping and the origin and destination mapping that we provided in the study. I guess maybe that's a good place to stop. Is there any questions on the core mapping that's proposed in the study?
Councilor Martel.
Through the mayor to Jen, is there any plan for any stop in the Tatamagouche area? Like, will there be any over the mountain stops?
Through the chair?
Shut up.
You're backwards today, apologies. Through the chair. So later on in the presentation, there is an option to, as kind of a phased approach, identify rural shuttles to Bass River, Tatamagouche and Stewiacke, as an add-on to the project, but not recommended in the initial piece. There is though, however, financial modeling for that. So it's something that council could look at independently of the overall system and understand the cost implications of doing even a 2-day-a-week shuttle to ensure that people are getting to and fro. I will note though, CTCL recently, and this is after the study was finalized, recently launched a new route system that goes to Tatamagouche on a regular basis. Sorry. They started a route that goes to Birch for employment, I guess, transit system. And then they launched a Great Village transit route that goes regularly. And the third phase is Tatamagouche. And I apologize, I don't know the exact launch date. I want to say it was late March, beginning of April, but I can confirm and get back to you on that. But that is part of kind of their existing service, which is interesting. So it might be something as we execute conversations with CTCL on the broader program that they might be doing already, and we might be able to continue that service. But I can get you information on what they're planning for Tatamagouche. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? Any further questions? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jen. That was great. A good summary of everything. Could I have that information as well, where that will go through?
Absolutely.
Any further comments? Any further questions? Then I'm prepared to entertain a motion. I'm sorry, there's more presentation. I'm sorry.
Apologies.
I'm
just
sorry,
make sure.
and I ended your presentation.
I know. I had the map up, so I figured if there's questions on the map, we might as well address it now. We can
Okay.
just take a look at the map. So sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Please continue.
thank you, Madam Chair. This slide kind of shows the scheduled routes that are proposed, and then also the timing of the routes. You'll notice that it's broad timing, so it allows for a lot of coverage during a lot of periods of time. So we would be running the recommended recommendations anyway, is that we'd be running 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on weekdays, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays. And the route would run every 60 minutes, meaning that if you're regularly picked up at Civic Square, that specific bus is coming to Civic Square every 60 minutes. Then also the Birch route would recommend, or it's recommended that this shuttle runs at very specific shift change times, looking at 5:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and then again from 1:15 to 7 p.m. The study does recommend weekdays only. However, I think both Town of Truro and Colchester staff have kind of identified that might be a challenge where our big, larger businesses do run shifts on weekends. So it'd be important to reconsider once we actually look at launching this, if weekdays is the best recommendation, or if we wanted to look at a weekend schedule as well.
Councillor Benwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Jen. So in regards to the schedule for Birch, would that be running every 60 minutes as well, or how is that, every few hours? Or?
Through the chair. Yeah, so it would be however long the route takes to run. So if it took, let's say an hour to go from downtown to Birch and drop off Lancaster and back, it would run every hour. I don't know the exact timing, but I do suspect it would be over an hour, based on the mapping that they have there, and to incorporate people getting on and off the buses, of course. So wouldn't be as frequent, but I'll address it later. There is a recommendation to consider perhaps a larger bus to ensure that more people can be accommodated on that route. Based on kind of initial scanning, we assume that, we're looking at more than 20 and 30 people per shift change that would be utilizing this route.
Thank you.
And Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Jen, and just to follow up on what Councillor Benoit said. So I'm looking at shift change, or I guess the first shift today at Kohler starts at 5:30. So anybody's ever out there at shift change, whether it be 5:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon, it's crazy. So if you want to hit that first shift change at 5:30, we're not going to hit it if you're leaving Truro at 5:30. And you probably know that, but obviously we'd have to leave and have people on site for 5:30. Is that correct? Thought about that?
Through the chair.
Yes.
We've had some discussions, preliminary discussions with businesses, and there's some uptake to actually align the shifts with the actual transit system. That's how interested they are in this. So we've had, Kohler, Solby's, Home Harbor all say, let's have a discussion. Perhaps we can look at kind of integrating a phased shift change and making sure that it actually aligns with our transit system so we can get people to work. So those discussions will still have to be had.
Good. And any other questions? Jen?
Great. So this is some information on the Ruddle, or sorry, the rural shuttle. We can call it the Ruddle if you'd like. The rural shuttle concept. It would run twice weekly to each of these locations that are identified. So Stewiacke, Bass River, and Tatamagouche. So we'd have this bus in theory running 6 days a week, but only doing each location twice. So 2 days allocated to each location. And obviously this would be designed for lower density communities and would allow us to connect our rural communities, of course, to the internal core network. The schedule that's recommended is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. As I mentioned, 2 days per week. And similar to Councillor Benoit's question, it would run based on a continuous route. So if it took you however long to get to Tatamagouche and back, that's how often that bus would go throughout that period. So they recommend 2 primary hubs. One would be at the Civic Square area, and then the second hub would be at the one of the 3, either the health center, the rec, or Walmart. There's still logistics to be figured out, but we know that we need a centralized hub in that area. And these hubs would be where your buses are connecting to other, there'd be route connectors. There would be more robust infrastructure here. So things like shelters, benches, garbage, all those types of things. And then obviously sidewalk and road infrastructure to support the bus stops for them to stop and be parked for a prolonged period of time. And then we'd have 2 mini hubs, one at the Fundy Discovery Center and one at the Hub Shopping Center. Of course, permission would be needed from the primary landowner here, but those would be smaller shelters, likely have a bus in some sort of likely have a bench in some sort of stanchion, but not as robust as your larger transit hub centers. And then, of course, at each stop, there would be signage and proper infrastructure to support our loading and offloading onto the bus. The study recommends a smaller shuttle bus fleet. So this is an image right here of what they're recommending for the type of fleet that we purchase. These buses hold 20 to 25 passengers. And this was a recommendation based on other regions that are similar size to us, what they use for buses. Also, they looked at our population and who's actually going to be using this bus. And they estimate a certain type of ridership per hour. And this is the bus recommendation. They're also suggesting this too, because of course it's less of an initial cost. When you look at a full bus, the capital investment is much larger, and they think this could very strongly service our region. Of course, we don't want to underservice. So there's definitely some more to consider to ensure that this is the right recommendation. But based on the research, they do think that this is where we should look at initially when we start to procure a fleet. The other regions, Bridgewater, Antigonish, Pictou, they all use this fleet size. There is a comment that a larger bus, as I mentioned before, might be needed for your divert route. We understand that getting, 500 employees to a shift at 6:30, one singular 20 passenger capacity bus is not going to allow for peak demand needs. They also looked at a variety of operating models and governance structures. And ultimately, the recommendation is that we look at a joint ownership model with the town of Truro. And then we look at engaging in a service agreement with CTCL to deliver the actual operation. So we would own the infrastructure jointly with the town of Truro. And then we'd have an agreement with CTCL to manage the actual execution of things like employment and managing the routes, managing the ridership, and then also manage the fleet itself from a maintenance perspective. So ownership with us, but execution on the service agreement portion would be by CTCL. And they also have a recommendation that we start to engage with Millbrook on ensuring that they're involved as a potential partner, whether that be an investor or even partial, operations, provide annual operating funds, considering that the routes that are proposed in the general network service Millbrook First Nation as well. This is modeled, I guess, essentially after the Pictou County model, Chad Transit. And it does allow for kind of this regional approach that we're looking to gain, and also leverages our existing service operator, which is CTCL. They already have kind of these practices in place. And we've engaged with them throughout the entirety of this study. They're on board, they're interested, and they do feel that they have capacity to expand their offering to ensure that they could work with us to put a servicing agreement in place to operate our system. So this is kind of a high level overview of the general cost. So your initial capital investment is estimated at $7 to $7.8 million. And the range of 7 to 7.8 is solely based on if we were to go with a larger size bus as part of our fleet. The majority of this is related to vehicle acquisition, of course. They're recommending 7 buses, even though there's only 5 routes. Of course, we'd need changeover for things like maintenance and reliability. We wouldn't want to break down and not be able to provide regular service. They're recommending that we develop a facility for storage and maintenance at $4.5 million, and then bus stops and supporting infrastructure at $847,000. I will note that the facility costs, and at least initially, could definitely be reduced. We could find, a shared parking lot and lease an office space or something like that, as opposed to building a full-blown facility initially when we first launched the system, and then over time look at having indoor storage for the fleet, and also, I guess, dedicated office space for those that are operating the system. I'll also note here, I kind of just highlighted the majority of what that covers within the capital investment, but I'll note that this capital investment is extremely well aligned with funding from both federal and provincial governments. The study identifies a few funds that we should look at engaging with to seek capital investment. So while I guess the initial number at $7 to $7.8 million is quite large, it's very likely that that could be reduced. There is capital funding available out there. And of course, we want staff and this joint transit coordinator to seek those funds before any type of capital commitments made. And then there's, of course, our annual operating costs, estimated at 1.6 to 1.8 million per year. We do have fare revenue projections based on what we think the ridership would be. And we estimate that roughly 20 to 28% of your general costs of operating will be covered by the fares that are collected via riders. We also noted that there is other things that we will need to engage in, things like student pass programs with the NSCC and the DAL-AC, and then work at any type of sponsorship opportunities with businesses, and then have service contracts potentially in place with things like our public health systems. So there's additional opportunities for revenue, but based on the general fare projections, we're looking at 20 to 28% of our operational costs being covered by fares. This is a more detailed breakdown. It looks at what your operating costs would be over time. In this first column here, your net budget is identified, and that's your capital expenditure that's identified. This is here the low end, so if there wasn't a larger bus purchased. And then as you go along, these are just your increases based on general inflation and costs anticipation as we go along for the first 5 years. And the ridership scenarios that are proposed, it is proposing that we would roughly have 8.2 riders load a bus per hour on the low end, and then 10.8 per hour on the high end, which it demonstrates kind of this variance in what your fares could be and what your general operating costs could be. I think I went the wrong way there. There we go. So these are the recommended fares. Your base fare is recommended at $3. And then there obviously is kind of bulk pass options as well, monthly passes, 10 pass punches. We have discounts for seniors and youth as well. And then children under 12 would be free. We also, there's a recommendation that we look at some sort of bulk purchase for those equity deserving groups to ensure not-for-profits could manage kind of these bulk pass programs to allow for their their clients and their groups to be serviced more affordably through a bulk pass system. As I mentioned before, kind of these partnerships with DAL-AC and NSCC still need to be explored, but these rates are what's kind of the norms when we look at similar systems, and also allows us to be competitive and what's felt is affordable as well. And then some information on the cost for the rural shuttle concept. So your capital expense would be $346,000. And then your annual expense to run that shuttle be roughly $270,000. Escalating as time goes on up to $290,000. And this would be again to service those more rural areas. And the recommended fare is a little bit higher as the fare is obviously for a longer distance. So it's recommended at $5 a trip. Okay, before I move on, any questions on the financial implications or the, suggested cost implications?
Councillor Kennedy.
Does the figure here include the wages for the drivers along with gas?
Yes.
Any further questions right at this point? Councillor Richardson.
For you, Jim, what was the cost share between the town and county?
Through the chair, it's recommended that it's a 50-50 joint ownership so that we both have, shared capital and shared operational at the same split.
Would that operational include employees?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And have discussions already taken place with CTCL?
Yes, they have. Yeah.
And what about Marquee bus lines?
We have not, Marquee bus lines have not been engaged as a service provider. They were made aware that this was going on and they had conversations with the consultants, but the consultants, I would say more heavily engaged with CTCL.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Sanderson.
A question about Millbrook. Were they part of a stakeholder group? They've been engaged in this process? Go.
Through the chair, yes. So our stakeholder advisory group consisted of probably 12 to 13 stakeholders in the region, and Millbrook was one of those. James Stevens from Millbrook attended kind of our review and provided some feedback actually, and some revisions that were made to the final study. There's definitely much more engagement required though with Millbrook before we advance any type of partnership.
Councillor Benoit.
Thank you, Mayor Blair, through you to Jen. Just a couple of questions, not about the financial aspect, but in reading the report, there's you spoke a few times about this will be great for people that are looking to do shopping, get groceries, things like that. I'm just wondering, like, if you have a full bus and say people are going to the grocery stores, Walmart and stuff, and they may possibly have 3 to 4 bags each, where's all the baggage going, I guess? Is there a spot located?
Yeah. Through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
There's definitely some analysis to do on the bus purchase itself. There's a variety of options available to us. I'll note that other service systems that operate this way, the groceries are put on the floor and people hold on to them, right? So there is definitely considerations to ensure that there's spaces for particularly, accessibility and people can still walk through and all those things. So before any fleet is purchased, of course, we'll kind of evaluate pros and cons of each of our options. And that's one thing to definitely consider. Yeah.
So, and I understand that, and I know we're still quite a ways away. I guess I was just asking because I know you have been looking at Picto and what they're doing and stuff like that, and I haven't been on these buses, so I have no idea. I just know like the big Acadian Lines buses, there's a piece on the bottom. So I guess I was just wondering to make sure that there's adequate storage for people that are shopping if it's a full bus of people and things like that. The other question I had was back when you were talking about the rural shuttle for Tatamagouche, Bass River and Stewiacke. I know the DeBert one is primarily for the business park. So I guess I'm just wondering for like DeBert and surrounding areas, not to be greedy, but is there if the one that we're doing is primarily for the business park, is there something that may be looked at in the future so that like seniors, other residents are able to go and do a shopping trip to town to get what they need as well on maybe that rural shuttle?
So through the chair, if I may. So this does go down, you'll see kind of to your village area and passes by your residential area. And it wouldn't be exclusive use for, employment transit. Anybody could stand at a bus stop and get on this bus, of course. Just the route would be timed around to prioritize shift change, but it doesn't mean that someone couldn't hop on at 10:30 when the bus is coming back, take it downtown, and then wait till the 1:30 PM to come back out into Birch.
Any further questions at this point? Jen, please.
So I'm almost through. I'll be quick here. So this highlights just kind of
This
your-
is an issue, so, yes.
So this just highlights quickly your economic and community impact. So of course, we talked about a lot of these already. It expands our labor pool for employers. It means that if you live right now in downtown Truro and you don't have a vehicle, you're probably working at, and if you're working at, let's say a McDonald's or fast food or the mall, you now have an opportunity to potentially work into Birch or at another region or area, which means that our wages are going to be more competitive and people are going to look elsewhere for jobs, which is a fantastic opportunity because more job opportunity means better wages and more jobs for all. Of course, it supports our local businesses too, because it becomes an employer asset to be able to utilize the systems to hire. Encourages local spending and accessibility to all of our retail areas. It reduced the cost of living generally, and while the uptake won't be for everybody, and not everybody's going to go from 2 cars to 1 car, we know that it definitely allows for living affordability to be improved in our regions. And then also it connects right now our downtown Truro core to our Colchester neighboring communities, which is extremely important to ensure that those communities have access and flow. And then most importantly, social housing and environmental impact. So these are all priorities of council, of course. It improves our access to essential services, our healthcare systems. It reduces the pressure on our pre-existing transit systems like CTCL and our public health systems, and allows those systems to actually provide resource to your equity deserving groups who really kind of need those door-to-door services. It supports housing and growth. It means more affordable housing options, and it supports higher density and planned growth areas, of course. And it supports our tourism and regional activities. So events, attractions. It means that, perhaps you could have a bus leaving from the wreck after a big event to get people home safely, and obviously eliminates parking stresses as well. And then very importantly, advances our sustainability goals, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and then our reliance on single occupancy vehicle use. So hopefully there'll be some transition from people driving a car every morning. Like I said, not all, but some will take on that option for affordability, convenience, or perhaps they want to support their own personal sustainable goals. So those are kind of the reasons the report is recommending that we advance these activities. So what's next? We've got a lot to figure out. As I mentioned, definitely not all the kinks have been sorted, and this study can only recommend so much. There's work that we need to do internally. Primarily, we need to sort through our governance model, of course. We need to look at what those funding commitments that I outlined before are and what that means to our budget and our financial implications. And then we need to look at agreements and staffing. After that, once all those fine details are sorted through, we would start to look at vehicle procurement. Vehicles could take upwards of 12 months to 18 months to actually purchase and get here. It's not a snap your fingers and we got buses type of situation. We definitely would need to take time to procure the vehicles, of course, plan for the depot and the hubs and the stops, and then also advanced technology for things like the routes and timing and all those types of things, and any type of technology we would need for fare systems and payment. So there's a lot to suss through that way from building the actual system. Then, of course, once all that's done, we would test and finalize before it was launched. And then we'd launch the service, and then ongoingly we'd monitor. As I mentioned before, this is a fluid system, and would need to be monitored based on how it's performing, and also feedback from the riders. As soon as we hear that a certain route isn't working, of course, we would consider how that would be revised, and look at changing and modifying and providing service adjustments. So what's next? I guess essentially this evening, we're just asking for council to advance kind of these couple of, high level next steps. And the big thing is that Each individual council, Truro and Colchester, needs to look at the financial implications. I'll note that Truro is going to be receiving this exact same presentation with the exact same ask, is that council independently take a look at what this transit study is recommending with regards to operational costs and what that means to your to your tax base. Does that mean a tax increase? Does that mean it can be consumed within your existing tax base? We want to make sure we're aligned. So there's some work here for your staff to do on ensuring that, you know, this is what it means for you as a council. And if you're interested in moving forward, we want to look at those numbers beforehand. With that being said, it doesn't mean tax implications this year. Your budget is approved for this year. This type of operational budget consideration would be in forthcoming years, of course. Once we have kind of consent on both Truro and Colchester, that in principle, we feel comfortable with those implications, and we would look at an MOU, and that MOU would outline kind of some of those next steps. One of them being hiring a joint transit coordinator to execute on the next steps of the plan and advance all of these details with regards to, you know, capital funding, and then looking at actually developing the system itself. So that's kind of where we're at. The study I know is long and lengthy. So if there's questions after tonight, or if you have a chance to read it later, I'm always happy to answer questions. Myself and Pam and Joanna, we're all kind of jointly worked on this program. So if there's specific planning questions, they can definitely answer. Paul and Michelle are well-versed on the study as well. So I'm happy to provide resource after, or if there's thoughts that come to mind. But that's kind of what we have for this evening. There is a motion in your package tonight to kind of advance these next steps. But also happy to answer questions if there is.
I'll entertain a motion to begin, please, and then we will open the floor for further discussion. Is there anyone prepared to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll put a motion that the council direct staff to undertake a review of the financial implications of a potential transit service for the municipality of Colchester, including impacts on the tax base, and report back to council with findings and recommendations.
And seconded by Deputy Mayor Sanderson. And discussion on the motion. I open the floor. And council, do you have any further questions of Jen at this stage? Very comprehensive presentation, and thank you, Jen. There's a tremendous amount of work that has gone into this.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And council, if you have no further questions, I'm ready for the question. The question has been called. And vote is open. And voting has ended. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is RCMP or military training, and Councillor Benoit, would you address that, please?
Thank you, Mayor Blair. I'd like to start this in regards to the training that was put out on the week of 13th. On the 13th, I had received, I couldn't even tell you how many, dozens of calls and messages well into the evening regarding the training exercises that were put out. There was a message that was put out. It said that the first message that was put out said that the tactical unit would be conducting training, increased police presence and noise would be in the area. And there was a lot of concerns, upset residents, family members, that it was happening the week of the anniversary of the mass shooting. So right away, I had gotten on the phone with Staff Sergeant Mark Rose, and actually that afternoon, as I was coming home from work, I stopped at the Birch hospitality center and tried to speak to somebody that was in charge there. They weren't there at the time. I did speak to another officer. He informed me that, and it was set up as a classroom setting at the time. He had informed me that they were planning on staying there in that location, and that they were looking at doing training on crowd crowd control and things like that. I did explain some of the residents' concerns, and that it was, they were concerned about the extra police presence in the area. There was a couple of people that, in honor of loved ones that were gone, that have passed, that they were going to plant some flowers at the park, and they would no longer do that because they were worried of the extra presence that would be put out there. I shared the concerns. He said that he would pass along. I then was on the phone with Staff Sergeant Mark Rose, MLA Tom Taggart. MLA was already, or he was working on speaking with some of his colleagues to try to have the training moved or postponed. I have to say that Staff Sergeant Mark Rose was an incredible help. He understood the situation. We talked multiple times back and forth on Monday. And the last conversation we had was he had called me at 10:30 that night, and he had reached out to some of the family members. Anyway, we had worked back and forth there. So I had asked if there was any way to have it moved or postponed, even though they were already set up there. And I said, if not, could they please be finished by Thursday, so that they wouldn't be in the vicinity when Saturday, Sunday. So he was going to make calls and emails when we got off the phone there to see if he was able to do anything. Tuesday morning, he had called me and said that they were not willing to move, but they would leave the area first thing Friday morning. So I did respond to the residents and let them know that they would be out of the area at that time. The other part of this, why I'm including the military, this isn't the first time that this has happened in the last 6 years. And I feel like every time I am fighting to try to get them to understand what trauma this causes for not just the residents of DeBert. I mean, this was a municipality, this was the province, this was everybody, but even in Onslow, we had some shooting happening, and everybody remembers that as well. So I even heard from those that were affected at the Onslow shooting as well. So 6 years later, we're still asking to show compassion and sensitivity to those trying to move through the grieving process, and it feels like it continues to fall on deaf ears. On the 16th of April, our member of parliament, Alana Hurdle, I know she was trying as well to get people to listen as well, and she did put out a letter, and she had tagged me in it, saying that she had spoke with RCMP Commissioner Mike Duham, issued a public apology to the community, and publicly assured it would not happen again. The problem is that, and that's fantastic, and I appreciate all the work that she's done with that. And the problem is, like I said, this isn't the first time. And even on April 19th of 2026, the military, now I don't have confirmation that it was military, but there was firing being done at the DeBert rifle range on the 19th as well. So there was also people upset about that. And then just for some history, April 20th, 2023, on that, or 18th, 19th of 2023, the Halifax Regional Police were also planning on doing a DeBert training exercise at the DeBert rifle range. I was involved in that and was able to shut it down with the help from Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon at that time. He was instrumental in helping me with that as well. Deputy Chief Reed McCombs called on behalf of Chief Kinsella for a sincere apology for oversight and assured it wouldn't happen again. And then now this is October, but this will go along with what my ask is at the end. So then in October, Canadian Special Operation Forces Command had military exercises And they had made a post about it. Except they did not say anything about large explosions that were going off. So, and I tried to look at the time. I don't remember what time it was. I know it was dark. But I think it was around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night, some explosions were going off. And so we were trying to figure out where it was. My phone was going, my messages were going, what's going on in Birch. So, anyway, I went outside, they were up by the military museum. We had a pretty heated discussion. They didn't seem like they were even fazed by what was happening. They were training. Anyway, so what I had learned after finally speaking to somebody in charge that night was that although they did put out a memo saying that there was going to be training exercises, there was nothing saying about explosions, and these explosions were loud. And what they had done was sent letters to people on Dieppe Street or Dieppe Avenue, so on the back of the base. They didn't send it to anybody else on the base, just Dieppe, because they didn't think that the sound would carry past the ball field. So they just sent it to Dieppe in case. Anyway, so it did carry quite far. So there was a lot of people concerned about that. So sorry, a lot. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that training is important and is needed. That's not a question. There's no issue with them training in Birch, neither. We know the history of the military with the Birch area, and it's very welcomed and appreciated. And the problem is there's 52 weeks in a year. And why does this have to happen at this time? And why do we 6 years later still have to try to educate and let people understand? Not one person deals with grief and trauma the same way. There's no timeline when they're going to be okay. So we just need the time to let the residents grieve in their way that works for them. So what I'd like to see, and I had planned on doing this, I had talked to Dan about this prior, and I had talked to Staff Sergeant Mark Rose about putting a letter asking council to put in a letter, because I'd like to have something in writing, because there is many different divisions of the RCMP districts. I don't know exactly how it works, so I'm asking for staff's help and council. But I would like to see something in writing that would encompass all of the different divisions, all the different teams, districts, what have you, and also include the military personnel that, and Staff Sergeant Rose had given me a couple of names to send it to: Chief Superintendent Dan Merrill and District Policing Officer Michael Ingalls, as well as him. But I would like to see that the week leading up to the April shooting, and also week after, blackened out for training to all RCMP and military in Birch. I know there's other locations that can be used. I realize that there's a couple of reasons why they do choose Birch, but I was told there is other options for those reasons as well. And furthermore, I think it's imperative to have open communication. And up to this point, I don't believe that, or I believe that it could be better. There's the mass casualty recommendations from there that I think need to be followed. And I believe that even though they make their posts saying that they're going to be in the area on certain dates, I don't know if they always share that with the municipality, but I think it would be beneficial if they did. And also the area counselor, and I'm not going to be there forever, so I'm talking about anybody that's beyond me. I think the area counselor should be noted in this to help spread the word as early as possible, so people are not caught off guard and triggered. And I know we're not going to reach everybody. I understand that. But I know on my District 9 page, I have over 700 followers, which not everybody reads it, but I feel that I have a good amount of people that come to me when they have concerns or listen to my posts when I speak on something happening in the area. So, and especially when it comes to this mass shooting. I'm very close with a lot of those that were affected with it. I speak to them regularly, so that is my ask. I guess my ask is to have help from staff to see how a letter could be generated and make sure that it goes to everybody, and ask that the week leading up to the April shooting and the week after be blackened out, and also that communication is put out to the municipality, which can also include the counselor in the area. Thank you.
And is that a motion?
Yes.
That a letter be addressed as you have outlined the week before, the week after, and to both the RCMP and the military, and that the municipality be advised through a communication.
And that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And it's been seconded by Councillor Richardson, and I thank you for bringing it up, Councillor. I know that I too have been speaking with the RCMP, and the MP spoke directly with the Commissioner for the RCMP for Canada, and this is the letter that she received. Dear Ms. Hurdle, thank you for speaking with Senior Deputy Commissioner Brian Larkin today regarding the impact of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police training and presence in Birch this week, as has had on your community. Please accept my sincere apology for the harm and trauma this has caused you and your constituents. I know this is particularly sensitive given its proximity to the 6th anniversary of the tragic mass shooting in Nova Scotia. Going forward, I assure you that the division will not schedule training or exercises in Colchester County around the anniversary. We will also approach this training and any other scheduled policing exercises in Colchester County through a trauma-informed lens, and we will identify alternate times and locations. I wish to reassure you that the RCMP remains committed to the safety and security of all Nova Scotians. Yours sincerely, Mike Duhame, Commissioner and Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Ottawa. So I wanted to let you know that apology, and that was the letter that you referenced in your comments. Councillors, we have a motion on the floor that a letter be prepared, and your wishes are? You're ready for the question?
Yes.
Question, and voting is up. The motion carries unanimously. And I will also be bringing this up at the Progress Monitoring Committee meeting the 1st of June. I have already sent a message to the PMC, which is dealing with the recommendations. And that includes Public Safety Canada and the RCMP, along with our Department of Justice and a few other provincial departments. So that will be coming to the table as an information item to them as well. Thank you, Council. Motion is carried unanimously. We'll proceed. The next item on the agenda is the Stewiacke River Park Road, and Councillors Cooper and Johnson, you have both asked that this be added to the agenda. So are you going to flip a coin, or are you going to each address this? All right, Councillor Johnson first.
Thank you, Mayor. This won't take long. So it was addressed at PAC last Wednesday night by John Visers, a resident of East Stewiacke. He brought up and wanted us to look into it. I told him I'd pass it on. I met with Tracy on Thursday. Tracy was going to speak to Councilor Cooper, and I know that's all I've done other than Councilor Cooper and I have spoken of it, and he's worked with Public Works, and I'll turn it over to Councilor Cooper.
And Councillor Cooper, please.
Yeah. little bit later getting out to check that road this year. It's the road that leads to our park, our municipal park. A couple of years ago, yeah, the road was in quite bad shape and council passed a motion to send a letter and Mayor Blair had done this letter. I don't know if you want me to read it or not. It was actually a really good letter. But before I get to that, I went out and checked with the road. It was worse than that 2 years ago. There's a section that comes off the Alton Road, access road within the park. What would it be, Michelle, quarter of a mile from into where it gets the park that we take care of, I think, something like that. Yeah, that part's really good. There's a few little potholes, but nothing. Yeah, we can take care of that. Yeah, park doesn't open, of course, right yet. So talked to a few people out there and they'd brought up a few things that had happened. And the letter last time, they did do a few things, and led to a few other things getting improved. The road itself is not a bad road. The road's a good road. It's just they don't maintain as far as the potholes go. 3 spots I counted 40, 60, and 100 potholes in 3 of the spots. You can see where they fixed before, some of them before. There's a lot of new ones and a lot of old ones that are half coming out. It's just brutal. Anybody that gets that, especially that 100 pothole section, this is a small section, I'd say not spread out for long. You can see the sign right here and the other one's right over there, 100 potholes in between. It's crazy. So you can hardly get through it. It's just people going in and out. There's people who live in the back of the park, and I'm sure they'd really appreciate the road doing better too. I think if council agrees to write a letter, I think it has to be what not to patching. You can only patch things so much. It needs to be, these sections need to be repaved. The 3 parts, the 40, 60, and 80 pothole sections. Because the fixing up is not going to do it. It's going to come back to it again. Over the next 2 years, it gets this bad, probably worse 2 years than it is now. So I know when we wrote the letter, Michelle and I talked a few times, and they weren't really excited, but they were, they did come out and do stuff. Made it so it was, you can get to the park and, they never fixed all the potholes anywhere. So I'm, gonna ask council, I'm gonna make a motion here that council, we send a letter, ask them to address, it is our park. We want people to go there, and if we can't even get to our own park because the road's so bad, it's kind of defeating the whole purpose. So, I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to, the Minister of Public Works, place to go, and that they ask to address this road, and that it be done, not just patching, that there's 3 sections that should be repaved. The other spots, there's potholes here and there, but easily get around them and go, these are the 3 big spots that fix those. And so I don't know if anybody wants this letter read or not. I will if you want me to, but this addresses the same thing from 2 years ago. So
Okay, then I think that we could probably use the letter as a guide
yes,
and then take it from there.
Yeah.
Unless anyone specifically wants it read. Don't see everybody's hand going up real fast, though, councillor, so I think we're good. Then we do have a motion on the floor that a letter be, I know that. I was going to ask for a seconder. We have a motion on the floor that a letter address the road conditions, be written to the Minister of Public Works, and preferably that it be repaved. And I need a seconder for the motion, seconded by councillor Richardson. And any discussion on the motion? Councillor Cooper?
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Fletcher?
I'll recuse on this.
Yes. Let the record show that Councillor Fletcher has recused on this issue. And further discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question has been called. And voting is up. And motion carries. Thank you,
I'll keep
Council.
everybody informed as what happens.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
I like everybody to put the park for one thing. so.
Yes. It's a lovely park out there. Correspondence is our next item on the agenda, and these are our action items, correspondence. The first piece is from Donna Lugar, Vice President, Nova Scotia Lyme and Tick-Borne Diseases Association. And the email dated April 6 is requesting that the month of May be proclaimed Lyme Disease Awareness Month. And Council, what are your wishes? Deputy Mayor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mayor Blair. I move that the Municipality of Colchester proclaim May as Lyme Disease Awareness Month.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cooper.
I picked one off myself the other day and two off my dogs.
They're quite rare. Any discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question? Question has been called and voting is up. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an email from Adam Harris, the president of the Rotary Club of Truro, dated April 8, 2026, requesting a proclamation for Rotary Week 2026. I'm prepared to entertain a motion. We do this every year. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Cooper. And discussion on the motion? Question's been called. All those in favor, please exercise your vote. And motion is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is an email dated April 12, 2026, requesting a proclamation for June 30 as Indigenous Survivors Day, National Blanket Ceremony Day. You have correspondence in your package, councillors. I'm prepared to entertain a motion. Councillor Benoit?
Thank you, Chair. I will make a motion to proclaim.
It's been moved by Councillor Benoit. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Richardson. That June 30 be proclaimed the as Indigenous Survivors Day, National Blanket Ceremony Day. Any discussion on the motion?
Of the question.
The question has been called. And your voting is up. And motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a letter from the Chief Executive Officer, David Phillips of TCPEP, email dated April 19, 2026, requesting a letter of support for TCPEP's funding application to the province. And I'm prepared to entertain a motion with regards to that request. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make a motion that we receive for information because it's past the date we needed the letter.
Our CAO, please.
Through the chair, yes, so we had made the CEO aware, and he had said that if we could still proceed, he would send it in either afterwards or let them know the potential one was coming.
Okay, then I would change my motion to.
By all means.
Yeah. To, where was it? Write a letter of support.
Thank you, Counselor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Richardson, moved by Counselor Patton, seconded by Counselor Richardson. That a letter of support be written as requested for support of TCPEP's funding application to the province. Any discussion on the motion?
No question.
The question has been called and voting is up. And motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a memo from Jill McGillicuddy, Senior Planner, concerning an application for a land use bylaw amendment for lot 2018C Onslow Road, PID 200000196. And I'm prepared to entertain a motion with regards to that request. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we refer this to Planning Advisory Committee.
And do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Weatherby. That we refer to the Colchester Planning Advisory Committee. Discussion on the motion?
Of the question.
Question has been called and your voting is on screen. And motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is an email from Mark Bonnell dated April 23, 2026, requesting a proclamation for Grey Cup winner Brett Lowther, Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Now, this Truro did declare Saturday, April 25, Brett Lowther Day, and Councillor Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion that we proclaim this, and I'll like to speak on it if I get a second here.
Certainly. Seconded by Councillor Weatherby. And Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, I had this sent to me last Wednesday evening with a request at short notice, and I had to get a hold of Mark now, get him to write me an email, get it back. So again, being late, but I believe that there was a certificate handed out, I believe, at Hubcraft Timber
That's
Mart
correct.
on Friday. I don't know
Yes.
who did it.
I did.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I didn't get to attend, but well, that's why it's late, because we weren't asked until Wednesday night. Thank you for that.
Yes, actually, the request came in. Yeah, and we approved these things at council, so this is why it's a little bit late, but anyway. You have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion?
Public questions.
Question has been called. And your voting is on screen. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. And Councillor Richardson is recusing himself from the next discussion. This is a letter to Mayor Blair from the Hilden Fire Brigade concerning securing funding through the Municipal Finance Corporation for the construction of the new Hilden Fire Brigade's Fire Hall. And I'm prepared to entertain a motion with regards to that. Moved by Councillor Johnson that
So it's a letter.
it's a
support for
letter
financing
for
from
support for
the
financing.
Fire Brigade with our support as council.
Yeah, I see what it's asking here. Funding option brought to us, yeah. So it is just a point of clarification through to Scott, please. Scott, is this support or a guarantee of a loan? How exactly is this, would this work as it's worded here?
It's a little bit different than the
Normal, yeah.
than the guarantees we've done in the past. The request actually is that we would finance the construction through the Municipal Finance Corporation. So it's similar to what we did for Brookfield Fire Department
Okay.
a number of years ago. And the reason for that would be that it's typically better financing than what the brigade might receive if they went through a local bank or whatnot. So you could refer it to staff if you wanted to, and then we could come back with an action item and recommendation.
And Councillor Johnson, you were putting a motion on the floor, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. If we want to send it to staff first, I thought staff already looked at it by the way of the letter. What they were asking for, but if that's not the case, then I'll change the motion to refer to staff, and back to us.
All right, and seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Cooper, that this be referred to staff for a report and recommendation,
Yeah.
correct? Yes,
Just to speak on that.
and Councillor Cooper.
Sorry, I don't really think we need to, I'll second that motion, but, they've done their finance and they put the rate up to cover everything, so. Put all their ducks in a row to make it all happen, so. I don't think we need to. Although a second time, I'm gonna vote against the motion. I should do it.
Okay, so basically then, address this, please, Mr. CAO.
Sorry, so thank you, through the chair. So at this point in time, obviously, there's multiple options for them to consider how they're going to move forward, and one of which would be the Municipal Finance Corp. And typically it would be a lower rate, not to guarantee that it would be. Understand, fire departments are structured differently. You can either be set up under a society or you can be set up essentially under the legislation.
Yeah.
And if you were under the legislation, you could go to Municipal Finance Corp directly. When you're a society, you have to go through a municipal entity to make it happen. So I think at this point, and why the director suggested maybe going back to staff, is there may be 2 or 3 options here in front of them for consideration. And whichever one of those they choose, then we would bring back that recommendation for council. Highly likely be the Municipal Finance Corporation, but if there's another option they want to consider because of length of borrowing or whatever, that would be something they would decide at that point as a society to choose.
Sorry, I forgot the do.
So the motion stands then, mover and seconder?
With me, don't you?
Okay, all right. Council, any discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question has been called and voting is ready for you. And motion carries. Thank you. And let the record show that Councillor Richardson is back at the table. Correspondence information is the next item, and we have our monthly reports from the development officer and from our building inspector. And I'm prepared to entertain a motion that we receive those for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. And does anyone have any questions or any discussion on this motion? Then your voting is ready for you. All right. Well, everyone else has voted, so we shall proceed. And the motion carries with 1 negative, Councillor Patton. The next item on the agenda, we're moving on to our information items. And the first information item is the Rath-East Link Community Center insurance issue. This is an information item that has been put on table by our Director of Corporate Services, Scott. And it tells you about based on the review, no financial or risk management advantage to changing the current insurance structure. I believe the cost of insurance based on this would be something around $98,000 annually. Any questions on this at all? Pretty straightforward. Counselor Cooper.
Yeah, just a quick statement. I know Councillor Like was key proponent of trying to make this happen. And it seemed like a good idea, but with the new information there, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's information. And we will move on to our reports from council members. Councilors, once again, busy schedules. Thank you all for the time that you have taken to put your reports in and for the time that you are spending on council matters. Very much appreciated. Once again, Councillor Weatherby, thank you for the report from the documentation. I see that we've got a new waste sorting guide and some of that documentation, which is good because we can now recycle coffee cups, which I'm sure that will take a lot of problems off the side of the road if everybody decides to recycle their coffee cups. Thank you all very much for your reports. Anyone have any questions of any of the councillors' reports? Hearing none, then we shall move into closed session. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, Mayor, I mean, if you want to do, we had a rec board meeting this morning. If you'd like to
Oh,
give me-
yes,
if you'd like to give
please.
me an update, I'll certainly do
I
that, even though it
certainly
didn't,
would,
it didn't get
yes.
on the agenda, so.
This would be under your report as chair. Okay.
If you wish, I know we
Yes,
said,
please. I
we said
would.
we'd give monthly reports after the rec board meeting.
Yes,
I'm
if
prepared to
you,
give one tonight.
please go ahead, yes.
Okay. So this will really be the first full report that I'm gonna give here as a chair of the rec board tonight. So I'll start off and say that the main focus really with the board and, you know, when I look at us, there's 6 of us there plus the 2 CAOs, and this isn't for the retired people, I'll tell you that right now. There's been a lot going on. We've covered a lot of material in a short period of time. This is not, it's almost a part-time job from what we've been doing. So I want to shout out to 6 members on this thing and the 2 CAOs, because there's been a lot going on. We've been faced with a lot of challenges here. We've been faced with a lot of inaccurate statements that are put out there too. We've been sitting back, taking it, and we will until we're not going to take it anymore. But right now, I'm going to go through what we've been working on, and as we move forward, and I think it's important that we retain the focus that we're on, and we said right from the get-go, it's on the focus is on the wreck itself and the issues out there that are not there. So the first thing I'll say is moving forward here, it's made up of board members, but the biggest thing we found right off the get-go is that with policies and procedures and procurement, really, when you look at staff purchases, and when I say that, there's 10 visa cards and still out there, all kinds of different purchases at all different levels. And we went through them all and found that there's no policies, no procedures, or no procurement at all, other than a policy handbook. So that's one of the main things we brought up. And we've directed our new intern manager, so you gotta understand, he went in there 6 weeks, so they were dealing with the deputy chair and myself for the first month. And that's where we're meeting a lot of setbacks and a lot of challenges and a lot of resistance to change. So that's the first thing is that we worked on. The second large thing we talked about is that an engineering firm, we're moving forward with an engineering firm to do a facility assessment. So we're going to send that to both councils here. We'll see that in the near future. We had an evaluation done. We've narrowed it down to who it's going to be. So we sent that recommendation. We'll be coming to councils, and we'll be moving forward with that here, I would say, for the next 30 days. Because it's very important that we look at everything in the building, see what needs to be replaced, see what's going to work with each other, and move forward. Capital building update by the interim CEO. He gave that today. That was Joel Daw. And I'm going to list down through some of the items. I won't go into too much detail unless you want to ask about it, but multi-stack, we've all heard about a multi-stack long before now. It's It's up for replacement and some of these things will work together. That's roughly today. We're looking around $1.3 million for a multi-stack. A Dectron, it's a pool dehumidification system, and anybody knows anything about ice services and pools, generally they don't work that well together because one building need heat in, the other needing to get cooling in, but we're looking at maybe sharing those back and forth. So the humidity problem in that building is related to the Dectron not being as efficient as it should be for the pool area, and it works through the whole building. So when you hear people talking about chip rock falling from the walls and the ceilings and fan coming off, it's because this unit is not functioning the way it should. It was under capacity to begin with, and we're looking at something a lot larger. And again, once we do this facility evaluation, they'll bring that up. The ice plant replacement. So again, we haven't really heard about that before, but the ice plant, it's undersized for the building itself. So, and it's close to its lifespan end. That's the other thing. So when you look at all these three together, the recommendation might come back where it might be a totally different system. Right now, it's a type of freon gas. When you look forward, we may move through with something else instead of freon. And I believe that our CEO said today that that's going to be ended by 2029, I believe, and we might go with something else. Pool area wall system. I'll go through roof and skylight repairs. So we're in the process right now. We have to wait till the temperature is consistently 20 degrees before we can do a thermographic scan of the roof. And that's going to be done with a drone that will go up and it will indicate the areas where the water is leaking. Right now, anybody that's in that facility, they'll see they got buckets and there's water running down through panels and poles. That doesn't mean that the leak is directly above that spot where the water is coming. It could be coming from a fascia, it could be coming from somewhere else. It could be coming from some of the large windows that are sloped up there. If you look at the design of the roof after being up on it, probably not one we'd put on that building again if we design it. But that's what we have. So in order to do that, we're looking at a cost of doing an initial scan, see where the leaks are, and then we'll move forward from there. Pool area wall system, and if you go in there, you'll find that our deputy mayor's in there quite often. If you're down in the pool area, it's hot, but if you walk through that corridor, that warm air is going straight up top, the second level, going into the facility where people are working at. Not conducive to an environment that people want to work out in, somewhere that's hot and sweaty from the pools down below. So there's a couple different options that was thrown at us today. One would be put a wall up. The second would be to extend the floor and block that downstairs off. But again, that's something that, again, has got to do with humidity and control in that building, which is obviously a problem. To say that again, the pool hallway airflow is terrible out there also. Again, it just doesn't travel properly. Again, cool air, not going to cool areas, and it's just being wasted. Pool locker room flooring. Anybody doing that pool locker room flooring and the showers, is that the tiles are beyond the lifespan of the tiles. They're peeling up. So we have to look at a replacement for those floors out there, whether we go with an epoxy floor or we go with smaller tiles. I don't know, but we've identified that that's certainly a problem. The rink board system, and it took me a while to get my head wrapped around this, but the rink board system on the pillars when you go around the outside of the rink, it's not set up the way that it should be set up in a, say, Quebec Minor Hockey League or even Quebec standards today. So if we wanted to replace some of them posts, we have to take the guys out to do it. You can't do it on the outside like we thought. So again, that is looked at, and that's a major, massive job that would have to be done when the ice is taken out. Anybody that's traveled in and out of that parking lot out there, the parking lot hasn't been touched since the day it's been paved. So we need to spend some money on doing something in that lot. I'm not saying we're going to repave it, but we certainly got to look after the cracks that are in there now. And anybody that's seen some areas around town, if they've ever been to Home Hardware is a great one in the Birch. I see them getting it done every single year. The company comes in and they hot seal all the cracks up. And if you have winters like we just had that have extreme temperatures from thawing to freezing with salt on it, that's where you're going to see the potholes that Councilor Cooper was talking about, and you're going to see bigger cracks. So again, unless we want to go and surface that whole thing in a few years, it's at the point right now, I believe it's salvageable. So we should really do something with it. Zamboni hot water tank replacement. So right now, the water, there's 2 water tanks there. And, it's about a $20,000 fix. We are using other water to put in those things because the water that's coming out of it is brown and you can't flood that ice with brown water. So it's up for replacement here right now, and I believe there's tenders going out in the next week or so to see if we get that again. That's something that can be done during shutdown summer. Exterior building signage. I mean, every time I pull off that highway at night, I look at it and I'm thinking, why don't they fix the light bulbs? Makes sense to me, right? But apparently, it's just not changing the bulbs. It's beyond the bulb repair. We have to change parts of the sign. I'm out there a couple weeks ago, and there's a Zoom boom in the lot, and I'm thinking, good, they're gonna finally fix the signs. No. If my name was on that, I'd be wild if it was burned out. But again, no excuses. That should have been done long ago. It's been burned out as long as I remember. So again, that's been addressed. Elevator software, believe it or not, we got an elevator there, but elevators are very expensive to maintain, and we have one in our building. It's calling for an upgrade to the software in this elevator to make it more reliable, make it function properly, that's $34,000. Believe it or not. So again, that's something that we can't put out, needs to be addressed, it needs to be fixed and move forward. What I call snow melt pit. If you drive by there during the day, you're gonna see snow from the Zamboni sitting outside. You've never seen that up until a few weeks ago. There's a pit in the back there. It's made up of coils that they dump it in. And we run glycol through that to melt it. It was not made out of stainless, it was made out of galvanized steel, and that's gone to the point now it's leaking. So we happened to catch it before it leaked all of the glycol out, but again, we stopped using it and we dumped that snow outside because we just can't use that pit to melt it. So we cut that off and shut it down. I'll talk a little bit about the budget. Today we've seen the first draft of it. EPs and Joel went through this, I know, at least 3 times and spent a considerable amount of effort, but this is Joel's first kick at a full-time budget. And like I said earlier, they did that basically with 2 or 3 other people. Imagine trying to get records of numbers from a chief financial officer that's no longer with us for 30 days. You can't access that stuff. So we did what we did. It brought back what we brought. I will say that he is back tomorrow. So we will move forward, but that didn't hold us back on a budget. We did see a budget today. And we do have to have a balanced budget, so we're not that far off, but we sent them back to see what kind of adjustments they can make before coming back with fund. We've also spoken about, everybody knows we have to do an audit. So there'd be an upcoming audit on the record. And we're in the process now of figuring out who we're gonna deal with to do this audit. Building naming rights, we talked about that this morning. There's been, I think the first year I was in council, we had a name on that building, then it was on there for 2.5 or 3 more years, even though we weren't getting any money for it, because they said we might as well wait till we take it down and put the new one up, or there's no new one to put up. But we're in the process, or they're in the process of trying to find someone to put naming rights on that building. And if you look at some of the other facilities around Atlantic Canada, you're looking at probably $1 million, 1.25 million over 10 years is what the going rate seems to be. So that would go a long way to get $100,000 a year towards any deficits up and pull that off. Again, we've got some names in mind, but it's all about timing and we can do it. The last thing I'll tell you on is that we had a letter from the Farm Loan Board asking us to remove anything that is society property, rec property from the NSPE grounds, and there's a fair amount of it over there. I asked as board chair before we had an interim GM months ago to get that stuff out of there. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. I've asked on various occasions to start moving because we knew the deadline date was coming. So it started being moved on Saturday, last Saturday. We got the majority of it off. There's still probably another 2/3 of the day work there with Hubtown Crane. And we're moving to a secure site at the top of Young Street in Truro. It's locked because there's a lot of valuable items in that thing. When I'm talking about the sea cans and what's inside of those. There's a bunch of concrete jersey barriers. We'll talk briefly on the bleachers. The question is that some reason Fire Longwood thinks they have access to them and they may want them, but really and truly where it's at is that the society got them through a COA. So, we'll be sending a letter off to the Fire Loan Board and saying that we'll be removing those when, before the 15th of next month. So that's really where we're at. A lot of information today that we covered. We haven't been sitting back doing nothing. This thing just doesn't happen overnight, especially when you've got resistant employees that seem to be doing everything they possibly can, not all of them, but some of them, to take us and not let us proceed. I think Joel, bringing him in here the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks, we're moving forward in the right direction, but even still, I still question this morning, you know what? Who is doing what we're doing to try to be on where we're trying to go? I think eventually we'll get through that. If we can't get through it with the people what we have out there and they won't work with us, it won't be there. We have a job to do, with or without them, and I think the ones that are there now, hopefully they'll work with us and move on, and we'll have to make some major changes. So anyway, that's my brief report today. We're not holding nothing back. A lot of work needs to be done. The question is here, before someone asks it, what's the time frame to get all this stuff done? Right? What is a legitimate time frame? And I can't speak on behalf of our council, but I can speak on behalf of our board. We've been throwing around 3 years to have everything done to that facility, put it back to where it was, where we're supposed to be, so people can actually use it, and there's nothing breaking down. 3 years. Seems like a long time, but it's not. And the reason I say that is that we're probably, you know, we've got some stuff coming down the pipe here in a couple of years, and we have to have the ice plant upgraded and ready for something that's could be a world-class event. So, like I say, 3 years, and then we're coming back and asking for dollars to make these changes. Because these changes, and I didn't list them all, but you're probably looking at $5 to $6 million. You're not gonna cover that with the $750K. Municipalities for the town at 1.5K, it's mainly operating, but to fix these deficiencies out there and do replacements. So that's what's coming. Say if we're gonna achieve this in 3 years, I hope success. So that's where we're at. I'll take any questions.
Council and Deputy Mayor Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to thank our council members that sit on the society for their dedication and hard work and all you're doing. There's a lot to do, and we really appreciate what you're doing. And I've got to say, from a member perspective of the rec, there's a lot of positive energy in that building now, where they know that the rec is the focus of that place. The health and wellness is the focus, and we're trying to improve the facility so we can continue to keep our residents healthy and engaged in physical activity. Positive energy, both in terms of increased programming in the fitness and in the aquatics facilities, and just positive energy, knowing that things are getting addressed that have not been addressed over many, many years. Thank you. Board.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for your report, and Councillors Kennedy and Weatherby for the work that you're doing. I know the amount of time that you've put into this. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Johnson, I'm just looking to assign like a dollar value to some of these, and how are you going to prioritize what gets done? When you mentioned the parking lot, what type of dollar value are we looking at there? Are these all capital items? I guess is one question.
So the dollar figures I didn't give you, CEO to us today, is to be determined.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have an amount yet because they haven't put them on the tender. So the larger amounts, we've got, like I said, the 1.3 and the 1.2 and 1.8. That's the three that we have, the three big trade. That's about the multi-stack, the ice plant. Those are three. The other ones, like I say, if you add those up, it's three, there's 4.3 right there on three items. So I'm doing math on the smaller ones, and when I say they're smaller, they're still well over $10,000. So are not something that they're directly responsible for.
Okay, so through the chair to you, you mentioned an assessment of the roof. So before a multi-stack, a multi-stack will go on the roof, am I right? Or where does a
No,
multi-stack
no.
go?
No. So if I may, through
Yes,
the
sorry, I
chair.
don't know anything about multi.
So the multi-stack, believe it or not, is down below grade in back on, I guess, the entrance where you go into the building. If you look at it, it's probably, I don't know, 30 feet long, and it's built with a bunch of units attached together. And really what it does, it disperses heat through the building. And right now, you've got to be daily gymnastics when they're actually turning levers off to shut down heat to certain places of the building, just so they can drive it where there is need. It shouldn't be that way. Where it's under capacity, it just won't do what it's supposed to do for the whole building. That's what the problem is day one. So we have a maintenance guy in there. They're directed every day. If there's nobody using that Millbrook room, shut that valve. If there's nobody, if they want to try to cool down the ice surface, they got to do that well in advance. You'll find down at the other end of the pool it's pretty tough to cool that. It's impossible long into the building too. So normally you wouldn't put all this stuff into the building, but that's where it's at. Because it's got to travel so far. Even the hot water tanks, hot water tanks are down at one end. You want hot water down in the pool. You can imagine how far it's going to travel in hot water.
So I guess, sorry for you again, I guess my concern was you're doing an assessment of the roof and the leaks and whatnot, so nothing will go on that roof if it's not deemed, what do you call it? Safe, not safe, but strong.
Well, I know what you're saying. So through the chair, here's.
You know what I mean? Like, is
do.
there gonna be something new put on a roof
Well-
that's been leaking for years and could be weak?
Here's one of the other problems that I'll address here is that we have solar panels on that roof. Right? In order to fix the roof, if we've got leaks around or under the solar panels, guess what? And when the municipality put them on there, I think they were probably knowing that someday if the roof leaked, somebody's gonna fix that leak under it. So that's why the assessment's coming in to see where it is leaking. We got no idea. You think it's leaking around the flashing, but what the maintenance guy said, you get up in there and see where it's coming from, it's not coming where you think it is. It's just where it travels. So that's very important to where, I mean, you can't have a building, even if you do fix all the other stuff, you can't have a building that's leaking.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Johnson, for that report. And if there are no further questions or comments, then I'm asking for a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. We are now in camera. We'll take a 10-minute break. Nibbling over there tonight.
Nope. Some bags of chips.
Got a lot for signs of which ones you want.